Chapter 98. The mountain was still the same mountain as before. The place Meng Qi was standing on was still the soil she had climbed all the way up. Even the sky was dark, and the stars were shining brightly. All of this was obviously no different from before, but in Meng Qi's eyes, it was completely different. The sleeve supporting her back was removed, and Meng Qi stood steadily on the ground. She blinked hard and looked at the white-robed man standing in front of her. Under the night starlight, Yin Qingyan's face seemed to be covered with a layer of cold light. His long eyebrows were like swords, and his deep eyes were brighter than the stars. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, as if he had walked out of a painting. Qing Qingyan's Henjun? Meng Qi murmured. The strength supporting her waist just now was real. The person in front of her was also alive. Yin Qingyan turned to look at her, and his gaze quickly fell on the strange beast that had fallen on the hillside. Meng Qi followed his gaze and saw a huge black shadow on the hillside. The night wind brought with it a strong smell of blood. If one smelled it too much, it would make one nauseous. This should be the strange beast that had sneak attacked her just now. She was too careless. Such a huge creature was following behind her, and she actually didn't notice it at all. She even needed Senior Yin to save her. Meng Qi couldn't help but secretly look at Yin Qingyan again. The man's side profile was incomparably handsome, but his expression looked a little cold. Do you recognize it? Yin Qingyan turned to look at Meng Qi. Let me take a look. Meng Qi walked to the huge black shadow. As he got closer, the smell of blood suddenly became stronger. In addition, there was another smell that was even more unbearable than the smell of blood. Meng Qi didn't know how to describe that smell. It wasn't completely smelly. That feeling was as if he was in a place where filth had accumulated for years, or even decades. The smell of decay was emitted from the black shadow, mixed with the smell of blood, so it was even more unpleasant. Meng Qi took a few more steps forward. The shadow was larger than 2 horses, and looked like a vulture with a pair of wings on its back. Compared to its body, its wings were much smaller, which was strangely funny. Meng Qi could not imagine how such a pair of wings could carry it to fly. I don't know him. She looked at him carefully for a moment and shook her head. Then do you know where this is? Yin Qingyan's tone was indifferent, and it was hard to tell whether she was happy or angry. Meng Qi turned his head and looked around. Other than the lake that was as huge as the sea, she could only vaguely see the undulating mountains in the distance as it was nighttime. Other than the place where she came from, there was a large forest. There were similar woods around the hill. Are we still in the east? Meng Qi asked. Yin Qingyan shook her head. This is the Starfall Sea. He said it casually, as if he was saying that the stars were shining brightly tonight, and the weather was good. Starfall Sea. Meng Qi was instantly stunned. But she had never doubted Yin Qingyan, and she didn't have the slightest intention of doubting him now. Yin Qingyan said that this was the Starfall Sea. Then this must be the Starfall Sea. Meng Qi turned her head in a daze and looked at the huge lake that was as big as the sea. So that was the Starfall Sea. She still felt a little incredulous. She was actually in the Starfall Sea. However, it wasn't hard to guess. The huge lake reflected the stars in the sky. Looking down from above, it really felt like the stars had fallen into it. Meng Qi looked left and right again. She had been to the Starfall Sea once in her previous life. No, she couldn't say that she had been there before. She was just looking for a rare spiritual medicine, so she tried her best to run to the edge of the Starfall Sea and carefully searched for the spiritual medicine along the edge. She didn't dare to enter at all. It was also there that she picked up the injured Pei Mufeng. Meng Qi had heard about the situation in the Starfall Sea from Pei Mufeng. Even this genius sword cultivator of the Starfall Pavilion didn't dare to enter the real center of the Starfall Sea. He went deeper into the Starfall Sea than Meng Qi, but he was also very far from the center. Meng Qi remembered that she had asked him if there was really a sea in the Starfall Sea. The sea could swallow the stars, so it had such a name. What did Pei Mufeng say at that time? He seemed to tell Meng Qi that he didn't see the sea. Miasma was rampant inside, and danger were everywhere. All kinds of powerful beasts ran rampant. In some places, they even killed one with every step. It was extremely dangerous. It was far less romantic than its name sounded. Mengqi looked at the dead beast beside her with lingering fear. If Qing Yan's Henjun hadn't suddenly appeared just now, she would have become this guy's meal. It was indeed extremely dangerous. She exhaled softly and asked, Qing Yan's Henjun, why are you here? Yin Qing Yan. Otherwise, where else could he be? He didn't answer this question. Instead, he walked to Mengqi's side. This is the Nirvana eagle. Yin Qingyan pointed at the vulture-like beast and said, Nirvana ardent eagle? Mengqi had never heard of this name before. She could be considered to have read a lot of books. She knew many celestial birds and beasts in the 3,000 worlds. The Starfall Sea had always been a forbidden area for cultivators. Although there had always been cultivators who ventured in for 10,000 years, very few people knew about the situation in the Starfall Sea. Even if there were relevant records, they were in the hands of the big sections. They wouldn't show it to people casually. I know about the ardent eagle. Mengqi said. The east border has it. Its feathers are as hard as iron. Some sects will collect them to make soft armor. They can also be used to forge talismans. The blood of the ardent eagle can be used to treat cold poison. If a little of the ardent eagle's blood can be added to the spring warming pill, the effect will be even better. She raised her eyes to look at Yin Qingyan. But that ardent eagle can fly in the sky. Its wings are enormous. This Nirvana ardent eagle's wings are so small, but it can fly? Yin Qingyan's lips quickly rose. He looked at Mengqi's clear eyes and coughed lightly. The Nirvana ardent eagle is an ardent eagle. The Starfall Sea was not like this before. It was no different from the 3,000 worlds. So that's how it is. Mengqi nodded. She looked down at the enormous corpse of the Nirvana ardent eagle on the ground. The other's little wings weren't just small, there wasn't any hair on them. It looked like it had been scalded by boiling water. It was slightly laughable. But a beast that could survive in the Starfall Sea must have something extraordinary about it. Yin Qingyan raised his hand, and a green jade dagger appeared in his hand. Is that the dragon sparrow blade? Mengqi stared at the green jade dagger in his hand, and her eyes lit up. This was one of the favorite magic treasures of medical cultivators. It was a dagger made from the bones of a dragon sparrow that was unique to the demon realm. Whether it was used to draw blood or gather herbs, it would never harm the medicinal properties of these things. The dragon sparrow blade wasn't a particularly rare magic treasure, but it wasn't something that could be bought just because one wanted to. Mengqi had been paying attention for a long time, but she hadn't seen anyone selling it. Okay. Yin Qingyan leaned over and reached out to cut the Nirvana ardent eagle's throat. Let me do it. Let me do it. Mengqi hurriedly took a step forward. Qing Yan's Henjun, let me do this kind of small thing. She didn't have the dragon sparrow blade, so she directly took out her silver medicine knife and a light blue transparent porcelain bottle. She rushed to cut the Nirvana ardent eagle's throat. Yin Qingyan. Mengqi was obviously very familiar with this kind of thing. She cut the Nirvana ardent eagle's throat and quickly used the porcelain bottle to collect the blood that flowed out. The small porcelain bottle in her hand could be considered a small magic treasure. Not only could it preserve the medicinal properties of the blood, but it also looked very small, and it could hold about a sea tank's worth of liquid. The Nirvana ardent eagle's body was huge, and blood flowed out continuously. Mengqi changed 3 porcelain bottles before she finally finished collecting its blood. She carefully closed the lids of the bottles and held them in front of Yin Qingyan with both hands. Mengqi looked up, and her eyes were shining. Qing Yan's Henjun, the Nirvana ardent eagle's blood is all here. Here you go. Mengqi wasn't short among female cultivators, but she was thin and looked a little frail. In addition, she still looked like a 17 or 18-year-old girl. She opened her clear eyes and looked up at the man who was about a head taller than her. The way she held the porcelain bottle with both hands really looked a little like she was offering a sacrifice. The stars were bright. The eyes of the girl in front of him were even brighter than the stars. And she was looking at him intently with such a pair of eyes that seemed to contain stars. There was a faint smile on the corners of her lips, and she looked very happy. Yin Qingyan's hand, which was hanging by her side, slightly bent her fingers. No need, he said hoarsely. You keep it for yourself. Oh. Mengqi was a little disappointed. She originally thought that Yin Qingyan needed the blood of the Nirvana ardent eagle. She looked at the little head in front of her, which seemed to droop, and her disappointment was obvious. Yin Qingyan couldn't help but cough softly. Keep it first. We'll use it later. Okay. Meng Qi nimbly put the porcelain bottle into her storage bag. Let's continue. The Nirvana Ardent Eagle is the ardent eagle of the 3,000 worlds. You know about it, Yin Qingyan said. In the beginning, the Starfall Sea was just a passage for people from the 3 realms to come and go. He turned his head away, not looking at Meng Qi's bright eyes. She obviously treated him differently from others. Just by looking at her eyes he could tell. However, Yin Qingyan's eyes darkened slightly. She had another person whom she cared about, and cared about even more. That person was always in her heart. In order to protect that person, she would be angry with Ji Wujiong. She was so stubborn that she didn't even care about her own life. Yes. Meng Qi nodded, looking very obedient. Later, many chaotic wars between the 3 realms broke out around the Starfall Sea. Countless people were killed, and countless mighty figures died here. Yin Qingyan paused and said in a deep voice, the Starfall Sea didn't really fall from the sky. Those who fell were the geniuses who dominated the ancient times. I see. Meng Qi turned her head thoughtfully to look at the silent lake under the night sky. So it's not called the Starfall Sea because of this lake? No. Yin Qingyan glanced at the corpse of the Nirvana Fierce Eagle again. There was too much killing around the Starfall Sea. After the ancient cultivators died, the spiritual energy nourished the world. Similarly, the murderous aura and the evil aura left behind when they died also devoured the world. Over time, the creatures around the Starfall Sea were not allowed to enter, and it became a forbidden area. Some of the strange beasts that were originally around the Starfall Sea died. Some were strong enough and struggled to survive. They also became stronger and fiercer. Yin Qingyan added, the Nirvana Fierce Eagle is one of them. He said to Meng Qi. Its blood, in addition to being able to detoxify cold poison, is mixed with a trace of Nirvana killing intent. It's best to use it to refine fire-type magic weapons. I see. Meng Qi thought for a moment and suddenly asked, Qingyan's Henjun, if you can't use up these 3 bottles of blood, can you leave some for me? She said, just a little will do. Yin Qingyan. He didn't need a single drop. Originally, he was going to give it to Meng Qi. What do you want to use it for? He asked casually. I know a cultivator who needs the Fierce Eagle's blood to upgrade his life-bonded magic weapon. If this is better than the one from the 3,000 worlds, I can give it to him. Oh, Yin Qingyan raised his eyebrows. He was about to ask who it was when he suddenly remembered. That kid from the Burning Sky Palace? I need all of them. Yin Qingyan said lightly. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. She was just casually asking for Chu Tianfeng. Of course, this was the Nirvana Fierce Eagle that Yin Qingyan hunted. If Chu Tianfeng wanted it, Meng Qi wouldn't give it to him for free. He would definitely ask him to give the spirit stones to Qingyan's Henjun. Whether he needed them or not, this was a must. Since he needed them, Meng Qi naturally wouldn't ask for them for Chu Tianfeng. But this place doesn't seem to be filled with the legendary miasma and murderous aura. Meng Qi quickly skipped this matter. He looked around and asked curiously. If it weren't for the sneak attack of the Nirvana Fierce Eagle, the scenery here would have been quite beautiful. Follow me. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeves and walked down the mountain. Meng Qi quickly followed. She knew that the Starfall Sea was extremely dangerous. There were many legends about the Starfall Sea in the 3,000 worlds. Moreover, she had heard a lot about it from Pei Mufeng. But now that she could follow Yin Qingyan, she would even dare to go to the more dangerous Great Devil Realm as long as Yin Qingyan said so, let alone the Starfall Sea. The two of them walked along the hillside toward the Starfall Sea that was as huge as an ocean. The night wind blew at their robes. Meng Qi had already put away his black diving suit, and his green robe was fluttering in the wind. It was just like Yin Qingyan's white robe. This scene was a bit like returning to the barrier of the medical cultivators competition. Meng Qi couldn't help but reach out and gently pinch her cheeks. Her face was a little cold from the wind, and it hurt to pinch it. How nice. She slowly exhaled. She wasn't dreaming. Although she didn't know why Yin Qingyan suddenly appeared, nor did she know why she fell into the Starfall Sea. That wasn't important anymore. Meng Qi stepped on Yin Qingyan's footsteps, feeling peaceful and happy in her heart. She followed him step by step. The two of them soon reached the foot of the mountain and were closer to the Starfall Sea. Yin Qingyan didn't stop and continued to walk forward. Meng Qi followed behind him obediently. Yin Qingyan didn't say what he was going to do, and she didn't take the initiative to ask. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the Starfall Sea, they didn't encounter any other exotic beasts along the way. The surroundings were quiet. Other than the sound of the wind, there was only the sound of their footsteps. Their footsteps weren't loud, but they could still be heard far in the empty night. Come and see. When they reached the edge of the Starfall Sea, Yin Qingyan finally stopped. Yes. Meng Qi stepped forward and stood side by side with him. Is this the Starfall Sea? Meng Qi raised her eyes and looked into the distance. Under the night sky, the entire Starfall Sea stretched as far as the eye could see. At this moment, standing on the shore, she could see even more clearly. The stars were reflected in the water, and the entire Starfall Sea was like a huge mirror. The stars in the sky and in the water were equally bright. Meng Qi stared at it for a moment, and felt as if the sky and the earth were connected. She didn't know what was the sky and what was the earth. Don't look for too long. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeve and swept it across Meng Qi's face. Yes. She suddenly came back to her senses and quickly took a step back. The Starfall Sea is not water, Meng Qi murmured. The entire Starfall Sea seemed to be still. The night wind could even blow their robes, but it couldn't leave a ripple on the surface of the water. Didi Pavilion, she lowered her head and looked at the Starfall Sea that was already very close to her. Is this spiritual energy? It's spiritual energy that has been split into the 5 spiritual energies, Yin Qingyan said faintly. The 5 spiritual energies. Meng Qi murmured repeatedly. Spiritual energy was composed of the 5 spiritual energies. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth each accounted for 1/5. However, this was only a legend. She had never seen spiritual energy that had been split into the 5 spiritual energies. This place was really full of miracles. Qingyan's Henjan. Meng Qi turned to look at Yin Qingyan. Have you been to the Starfall Sea before? She didn't remember Yin Qingyan mentioning the Starfall Sea in her previous life. However, he wasn't the talkative fox Su Junmo. He didn't like to talk about himself. Yes. Yin Qingyan nodded slightly. I have a friend. Meng Qi said. Pei Mufeng, the pavilion master of the Starfall Pavilion. He also entered the Starfall Sea. I don't know if we will meet him. No. Yin Qingyan said. Huh. Meng Qi was a little puzzled. Why not? The Starfall Sea has been connected to the 3 realms since ancient times, Yin Qingyan said. So the Starfall Sea exists in all 3 realms. Meng Qi was stunned and suddenly realized. The place we are now is not the Starfall Sea of the 3 realms. The place we are at is the center of the Starfall Sea. Very few cultivators can come here, Yin Qingyan said. The center of the Starfall Sea? Meng Qi murmured and repeated in disbelief. Then if I want to leave here, do I have to walk from the center to the edge? You're right to think that way, Yin Qingyan said. After he said this, there was a faint tiredness between his eyebrows. Yin Qingyan took a deep breath. The 5 spiritual energies were like a sweet spring, nourishing his limbs and bones. The night breeze was slightly cool, and there was a refreshing feeling as if a lifetime had passed. It's getting late. Let's find a place to rest first, Yin Qingyan said. He also didn't expect that Meng Qi would bring him here by chance. When he wasn't injured, he could naturally come here. Now that he was seriously injured, and there were so many people eyeing him covetously, waiting for him to appear. At the edge of the Starfall Sea in the Demon Realm, someone had already set up an inescapable net, waiting for him to walk into it. With Yin Qingyan's current situation, it would be very difficult for him to break into the edge of the Starfall Sea. He didn't expect that Meng Qi would bring him in directly. She had saved him once again. Yin Qingyan's eyes flashed. Well, in the future, even if he found the guy in his clan who taught Meng Qi the 4 extremes and star formations without permission, if the two of them really liked each other, then he could. Yin Qingyan frowned slightly when he thought of this. He would think about it when he found him. Maybe Meng Qi didn't have any feelings for that clansman at all. And it was just that guy's wishful thinking. Let's go, Yin Qingyan said, turning around and walking along the Starfall Sea. Oh, Meng Qi, who was following behind him, said in a low tone, sounding a little disappointed. Yin Qingyan turned his head and glanced at her indifferently. What's wrong? Can I still get out? Meng Qi suddenly felt a little desperate. In her previous life, she carefully explored the edge of the Starfall Sea, the outermost area, and was almost injured by exotic beasts. Pei Mufeng also said that the deeper they went into the Starfall Sea, the fiercer and stronger the exotic beasts were. Every step he took was incomparably dangerous. At that time, Pei Mufeng was already a spirit-severing cultivator. The sword spirit had also cultivated to the perfection of Realm 6. He only needed an opportunity to break through to Realm 7. In the entire Trichiliocosm, even among sword cultivators, Pei Mufeng was one of the top experts among the younger generation. Even he was seriously injured and almost died in the Starfall Sea. Meng Qi could already imagine how miserable she would be. You want to go out? Yin Qingyan asked. Yes. Meng Qi nodded repeatedly. She came to Starfall Valley with Xing and the others, and then inexplicably came here. They couldn't find her, and she didn't know how worried they were now. She definitely had to go back. My friends are still waiting for me in Starfall Valley. If they don't see me, they will definitely look for me everywhere, Meng Qi explained. I have to leave this place as soon as possible. At the very least, she had to let Xing and the others know that she was fine. Qing Yan's Henjun, how did you come in? She looked at Yin Qingyan curiously. Is there any other way to leave the Starfall Sea? No, Yin Qingyan said straightforwardly. I see. Meng Qi's face was full of disappointment. She hesitated and turned to look at the way she came. She was a golden core cultivator and a medical cultivator. Did she really have to kill her way out of the Starfall Sea? If not for Yin Qingyan, she would have died under the claws of the Nirvana Fierce Eagle just now. Yin Qingyan was very strong, but from the looks of it, he had no intention of leaving this place now. If she asked Meng Qi to ask him to send her out, Meng Qi hesitated. Starfall Sea. Why did she know so little about the Starfall Sea? What should she do now, huh? Meng Qi's eyes suddenly lit up, and she was energized. She didn't know about the Starfall Sea, but she could go to the senior in the Heaven and Earth Book House to ask for advice. Perhaps there would be records about the Starfall Sea in the Heaven and Earth Book House. Qing Yan's Henjun, let's find a place to rest first, Meng Qi said. Even if she wanted to go out, she wasn't in a hurry. It was night now, and danger was everywhere. Just like before, she didn't notice the danger at all. It should be better during the day. Okay. Yin Qingyan nodded slightly. He originally wanted to say that if Meng Qi insisted on going out, he could send her away first after a few days of recuperation. But he quickly changed his mind. With Meng Qi's current situation, it was safest for her to stay by his side. Let's go. Yin Qingyan made up his mind and walked forward with Meng Qi. He was very familiar with this place. Meng Qi followed him for a short while, and suddenly saw a small boat tied to the shore of the Starfall Sea. Yin Qingyan seemed to have known that there was a boat here, and he stepped onto the boat. He turned around and beckoned Meng Qi. Come up. Oh, okay. Meng Qi hurriedly followed. The wooden boat was quite small. With the two of them standing inside, there was almost no space for a third person. There was no oar on the boat. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeves, and the boat shot toward the center of the Starfall Sea like an arrow leaving the bow. Meng Qi was stunned. She subconsciously tilted her head and looked out of the boat. They didn't seem to be sailing on the sea, but more like soaring in the night sky. Under their feet was the Starfall Sea formed by the 5 spirits' primordial qi. It was bottomless, like an endless abyss that swallowed the stars. Just one more look would make one dazzled and mesmerized. Meng Qi's body swayed slightly. Yin Qingyan quickly reached out to hold her arm. Be careful. Yes. She stood still a little embarrassedly and asked, Qing Yan's Henjun, where are we going? The Great Desolate Island, Yin Qingyan said. He seemed to have forgotten that he was still holding Meng Qi's arm, or he was worried that she would lose her balance. His fingers were firmly holding Meng Qi's elbow through his sleeves, until the boat swayed slightly and stopped. Ah! Mengqi looked up and couldn't help but exclaim softly. She stood on the shore and looked into the distance. There was nothing in the Starfall Sea. Now there was a small island in front of them. Yin Qingyan abandoned the boat and landed on the island. He waited for Mengqi to jump onto the island before letting go of her arm. Mengqi felt that it was amazing. Yin Qingyan could even find such a boat and an island. Here she looked around. Although she couldn't see clearly in the night, she could tell that the island was not a dangerous place. It was completely different from the legendary Starfall Sea. Mengqi and the others walked for about half an hour. After passing through a garden on the island, a manor appeared in front of them. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeves, and the manor's door opened. The luminous pearl gradually lit up, illuminating the entire manor. Please. Yin Qingyan stepped aside to let Mengqi in first. Mengqi. She had a lot of questions to ask now, but she didn't know where to start. Yin Qingyan was so familiar with this place. Could it be that this was actually his home? Therefore, her master really did come from a reclusive family. However, no one would have thought that this family was actually hidden in the center of the Starfall Sea, which was the most dangerous place in the world. Mengqi walked forward in a daze. Ever since she was involved here, Yin Qingyan seemed like a god descending from the heavens. Everything seemed so unreal. It was even more unreal than when she saw Yin Qingyan in the illusory array during the competition. Mengqi lifted her feet and looked down at the ground subconsciously. It was as if she would fall into the endless void if she stepped on it. Then, she would wake up and find that it was just a dream. The manor was grand and spacious, with winding corridors and rows of rooms. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, it looked very grand. Yin Qingyan followed them in, and led Mengqi along the long corridor toward the back of the manor. You can rest here. He led Mengqi to a room and pushed the door open. Mengqi stood at the door and looked inside. The room was decorated very elegantly. There was a large carved bed in the innermost part of the room. Soft gauze hung from the top and covered the bed. There was a table in the middle of the room. There was a pen holder placed casually on it with a few brushes hanging from it. At the corner of the table, there was a white jade porcelain vase with a few budding peach blossoms in it. Everything looked as if someone often lived here, and the owner only left and returned half a day later. I'm next door. Yin Qingyan raised his chin slightly and pointed to another door not far away. Okay. Mengqi nodded. Have a good rest. Yin Qingyan looked at her deeply. We'll talk tomorrow. Okay. She answered absent-mindedly. Mengqi watched Yin Qingyan leave and watched the door opposite her open and then close. She still felt that it was too unreal. She stood at the door for a moment before slowly closing the door and walking into the room. Mengqi sat down on the soft bed. After a while, she came back to her senses and remembered what she was going to do. She quickly took out the jade slip of Sky Beyond from her storage bag. Shui Jinwen reminded her not to trust the old man in the Heaven and Earth bookhouse too much. However, that senior was very knowledgeable. The Heaven and Earth bookhouse was full of bamboo slips and jade slips that Mengqi had never heard of. Mengqi really didn't expect that such an old man would plot against her. When they first met, she was just a small cultivator in the foundation establishment stage. She held the jade slip of Sky Beyond. The moment she entered, she felt as if she had forgotten something. However, Mengqi quickly calmed down and completely entered Sky Beyond. A light flashed in front of her eyes. When she opened her eyes, she was standing outside Sky Beyond City again. She was about to go directly to the Heaven and Earth bookhouse when the nameplate suddenly vibrated violently. Mengqi quickly picked up the nameplate. She knew that this meant that a cultivator she knew in Sky Beyond had sent her a message. When she was in Sky Beyond, she seemed to have only exchanged nameplates with Shui Jinwen. Sure enough, Mengqi reached out and held the nameplate. Her divine sense entered and saw the message that Shui Jinwen had left for her. Mengqi, reply quickly when you see this message. Mengqi, where did you go? We searched all over Starfall Valley, but couldn't find you. If you go to Sky Beyond, you must contact me. Mengqi, are you okay? Mengqi quickly held her nameplate. This was the first time she used this function of the nameplate. Her divine sense could write a message and then send it to Shui Jinwen. This should be similar to a flying sword message or a secret voice transmission technique. It could let the other party immediately receive the message she sent. After a while, her nameplate vibrated again. Thank God. Mengqi. It's good that you're okay. We were worried to death. Shui Jinwen's message came quickly. Mengqi, come to Sky Beyond Tower. We'll meet here. Okay. Mengqi quickly replied. She originally wanted to go to the Sky Beyond Tower, but now she changed her direction and directly used the teleportation array to go to the floating island where Sky Beyond Tower was. As soon as Mengqi stepped out of the teleportation array, she heard cheers. Before she could react, Si Kongxing, who was dressed in fiery red, pounced on her. Mengqi. She hung on Mengqi's shoulder. You suddenly disappeared. You scared us to death. Xingxing. Mengqi's heart warmed. She gently patted Si Kongxing's shoulder. I'm fine. Where did you go? Si Kongxing heard this and quickly let go of Mengqi. She looked at her from head to toe. You don't know. We almost searched the entire Starfall Valley. Pavilion Master Pei has already gone to the Starfall Sea. The elders of the Starfall Pavilion asked their disciples to help us search. We almost searched the entire Starfall Valley and Starfall City, but we couldn't find you. We were all scared to death. I'm sorry. Mengqi was touched. Where are the others? Sister Shui went to inform Su Junmo and the rest. They're still looking for you around Starfall Valley. Si Kongxing said as she pulled Mengqi towards Sky Beyond Tower. Let's go in and wait for them. Okay. Mengqi nodded. She subconsciously looked at the floating island in the sky. Her heart skipped a beat. Mengqi quickly retracted her gaze and walked side by side with Si Kongxing into Sky Beyond Tower. Fellow Taoists, please. The welcoming cultivator of Sky Beyond Tower quickly welcomed them. Do you have a reservation? Give us a private room. Si Kongxing said, we have 4 people. We'll be there in a while. I'm sorry. The welcoming cultivator smiled and said, the last private room has just been reserved. We can only sit in the main hall. Just as the welcoming cultivator finished speaking, a young male cultivator's voice suddenly came from behind Mengqi. Is this fellow Taoist Mengqi? Mengqi was startled. She turned to look at the person. The young man in a blue robe stood tall. He had a handsome face. However, Mengqi did not recognize him. It's indeed fellow Taoist Mengqi. The young man cupped his hands towards Mengqi. I'm sorry for disturbing you. Please don't blame me. May I ask who you are? Mengqi returned the greeting. I don't think we've met before. She looked at her good friend beside her, who had immediately become on guard, and gave Si Kongxing a reassuring smile. Nothing should happen in the heavens beyond pavilion. Fellow Taoist Meng has never seen me before, but I've seen your heroic appearance with my own eyes. The male cultivator smiled slightly and cupped his hands again. It's not a coincidence that fellow Taoist was recognized by Senior Lin Yanswell during the competition. I also admire fellow Taoist very much. Fellow Taoist, you're too polite. Mengqi returned the greeting. Does fellow Taoist need a private room? The young male cultivator looked at Mengqi. It just so happens that the last private room was reserved by me. Since fellow Taoist Meng needs it, please use it first. Mengqi was quite embarrassed. No need. It's the same for us in the main hall. It's fine, it's fine. The young male cultivator waved his hand. I wished I could fight side by side with fellow Taoist that day. What's a small private room? Even if fellow Taoist Meng doesn't need it, I don't need it either. Please don't reject it. Si Kongxing reached out and pulled Mengqi's sleeve, winking at her. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Mengqi returned the greeting. Please. The young male cultivator did not say anything more. He turned around and returned to his friend's side. The two of them turned towards the main hall and whispered something as they walked. His friend also turned around and looked at Mengqi from afar before turning back. Si Kongxing hugged Mengqi's shoulder. The two of them followed the welcoming cultivator to the private room in Sky Beyond Tower. She laughed softly. You didn't expect this, did you? It's a little unexpected. Mengqi had never encountered such a thing. After you disappeared, we looked for you everywhere in Descending Star City. These medical cultivators also helped us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to search the entire descending star city so quickly. Meng-Chi stood on the stairs and lowered her head to look at the cultivator from earlier. The other party happened to be looking at her as well. He picked up the wine cup in his hand and raised it towards her with his friend from afar. Actually, I'm not surprised. Si Kongxing pulled Meng-Chi up and said, that day in the apricot forest, many medical cultivators sincerely wanted to help you. Many of them were also quite nice. Meng-Chi heard this and smiled sweetly. There are many nice people in the first place. Oh right. She suddenly remembered. Did you see Ji Wujiang after that? Ji Wujiang? Si Kongxing was startled. She shook her head. No. After he rushed out of the apricot forest that day, I never saw him again. What's wrong? Meng-Chi was about to speak when the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open again. The first person to rush in was Chu Tianfeng. He practically jumped in front of Meng-Chi. He grabbed her shoulders and looked at her from head to toe for a while before he heaved a sigh of relief. Meng-Chi, next time. It's useless no matter what you say. Chu Tianfeng was about to go crazy. I'll follow you no matter what you say. Su Junmo, who just came in, was speechless. Young man, this is the heavens beyond heaven. You said such things and did such things. Do you still want to come here in the future? At this moment, on the highest floating island in the heavens beyond heaven, a man in a white robe slowly opened his eyes. His slender fingers gently tapped on the table beside him. His gaze was languid and tinged with a hint of coldness. Chapter 99. The waiter of heavens beyond quickly served a pot of tea and teacups. The door of the private room opened and closed. Meng-Chi and the others sat around the table. No one touched their chopsticks, and they were all listening attentively to her description of what happened in Starfall Valley that day. Starfall Sea. Chu Tianfeng almost jumped up. You're in the Starfall Sea now? Yes. Meng-Chi was also helpless. The Starfall Sea was an absolutely dangerous place in the 3,000 worlds. Legend had it that anyone below the spirit-severing stage would die as soon as they stepped into it. If it weren't for Yun Qingyan, Meng-Chi would probably have died under the claws of the Nirvana Fierce Eagle. Meng-Chi, Qin Xiuma, calm down. Where are you in the Starfall Sea? I should be in the center. Central? Even Su Junmo sucked in a cold breath. If it was at the edge, they could still find a way to break in and bring Meng-Chi out. Wait, isn't the entrance to the Starfall Sea in the east closed? Su Junmo asked. When Pei Mufeng went in, he brought you with him into the Starfall Sea. What about him? No. Meng-Chi shook her head and told everyone what happened in the Star Lake. So you're saying? Si Kongxing was stunned. The Star Lake in Starfall Valley is connected to the Starfall Sea? Yes. Meng-Chi nodded. That day, when we were about to flip over Starfall Valley, the Star Lake looked fine. She said, I didn't expect that something like this would happen. Su Junmo looked at Meng-Chi thoughtfully. Pavilion Master Pei also went to the Starfall Sea. Did you meet him? No. Meng-Chi shook her head. She thought for a moment, and didn't mention Yun Qingyan. Ji Wujiang was with me at the Star Lake. Did you see him? No. Su Junmo shook his head firmly. He took a deep look at Meng-Chi and said, After you disappeared, the Falling Star Pavilion's disciples and we looked for you nearby. We didn't see Ji Wujiang. Strange, they can't see any changes in the Star Lake. It's said that only 3 disciples can use the Star Lake for a day each year. The disciples of the Falling Star Pavilion are not familiar with that place. Chu Tianfeng continued. Meng-Chi, how can you come to this sky beyond heaven? Is it safe for you? It is said that the Starfall Sea is filled with miasma and ferocious beasts. You can kill one with every step you take. Are you sure you can do this? He looked at Meng-Chi up and down anxiously and asked, The ferocious beasts in the Starfall Sea are much stronger than those in the outside world. You must not fight them head-on if you encounter them. Thank you for your concern. Meng-Chi nodded at Chu Tianfeng. I'm in a relatively safe place right now. There are no exotic beasts for the time being. Is there a way to leave? Qin Xiumo asked. This was what Meng-Chi was worried about. The center of the Starfall Sea is not as dangerous and terrifying as the legends say. She said, it's just that if I want to leave there, I can only walk from the center to the edge. Isn't that very dangerous? Xikong Xing asked. Yes, Meng Qi said straightforwardly. I think it will be very difficult for me to leave by myself. Starfall Sea. Xue Jinwen, who had been silent all this time, thought for a while. I once saw some records in the library at home. It is said that the place is also simply divided into the east, west, south and north realms. As she spoke, she asked the waiter of the Sky Beyond Heaven Tower to bring her the 4 treasures of the study. After watching the door of the private room close again, Xue Jinwen spread the white paper on the table and picked up the brush to draw. It is said that the center of the Starfall Sea is a huge lake. As she spoke, she drew a circle in the middle to represent the lake. Then she divided the lake into 4 parts along the circle. Xue Jinwen was born in the Wind League. Although she was the unfavored daughter of the Xue family, she had been in the Wind League for a long time. However, the Wind Alliance had existed for tens of thousands of years. Even Chu Tianfeng and Qin Xiuma, who were also disciples of large sects, had never heard of some of the secrets she knew. Several ancestors of my family have entered the Starfall Sea personally, or sent people to do so. Xue Jinwen said. They all entered from the west. This place. She drew the shape of a wave on the west side. It is an endless forest and miasma. There are countless poisonous insects and beasts hibernating in it. Because my ancestors were medical cultivators, they were lucky enough to pass through the forest. However, it is difficult to go further. Most of my ancestors stopped at the edge of the forest. The contents of the books at home are mostly about the murderers and miasma in the forest. Meng Qi listened attentively. The west side is forest and miasma. Xue Jinwen continued. According to the books, the west side of the Starfall Sea is a relatively less dangerous place. So if I want to come out, it's best to choose the west side? Meng Qi asked. 8 ancestors of my family died in the Starfall Sea. Xue Jinwen looked up at Meng Qi and said quietly, Meng Qi, someone from the Burning Sky Palace has also been to the Starfall Sea. Chu Tianfeng continued. They also entered the Starfall Sea from the west side. As far as I know, 12 elders at the spirit severing stage or above died there. 2 KXS. Loss he spoke. He took the pen from Xue Jinwen's hand and told Meng Qi the secrets of his sect without hesitation. In the forest on the west side of the Starfall Sea, besides the poisonous insects and miasma, there are also powerful strange beasts. According to the descriptions of the ancestors who came out alive, those strange beasts are at least at the spirit severing stage 5 or 6. Meng Qi. Cloud Peak entered the Starfall Sea from the south. Qin Xiuma continued. Cloud Peak was the sect he belonged to. There are many swamps in the south side of the Starfall Sea. It's a bit like the swamps in the south, but it's more dangerous. There are countless poisonous insects, and there are also fierce beasts that can survive in the swamps and on land. I don't know how many people went to the sect, but there are records that more than 20 cultivators died there. Meng Qi. I know a little about the situation on the east side of the Starfall Sea. Meng Qi also told him what he knew without hesitation. Her understanding of the east side of the Starfall Sea was almost all what she heard from Pei Mufeng in her previous life. There was a great battle between demonic cultivators and cultivators on the east side of the Starfall Sea. The killing intent hasn't dissipated yet. So it's probably equivalent to a large formation. 1 step in the formation, 1 kill, 1 danger at every step. The fierce beasts that can survive in such a place are all cunning and intelligent. Some of them even gather together and ambush others. In the past, Pei Mufeng had been injured by such cunning fierce beasts. If he hadn't coincidentally encountered Meng Qi and been picked up by her, he would have been killed. He would have quickly become food in the stomach of the fierce beasts that had been following him and wanted to kill him after he was heavily wounded. Meng Qi thought for a moment, then took the pen and drew a big cross on the east side. A genius sword xiu like Pei Mufeng had almost died on the east side. She definitely wouldn't risk going there. The swamps in the south are also good for ambushes. Meng Qi drew a cross on the south side. Does anyone know the situation on the north side? Everyone in the room shook their heads. Meng Qi was slightly hesitant. So many elders and experts of the Wind Alliance had died on the west side. If she went, she would probably be even worse off. Meng-Chi. Xing comforted her. The Starfall Sea is connected to the 3 realms. We can think of other ways. Meng-Chi heard this and turned to look at Su Junmo with Xing. This person was really experienced and knowledgeable in the demon realm. He even knew the secrets of the demon realm's big shots. He must be familiar with the Starfall Sea. Why are you looking at me? Su Junmo said. I haven't been there either. Xing, you should have heard of one of the most vicious curses in the demon realm. It's a curse that sky demons fall into the Starfall Sea. When he said this, he couldn't help but mutter. There was news in the demon realm that the demon lord had died in the Starfall Sea. His body and soul were gone. Really? Just thinking about it made him angry. Then, Meng-Chi was a little depressed. She put her chin on the table and looked at the people around her. The demon realm? Don't. Su Junmo quickly waved his hand. The demon realm is even more terrifying than the Starfall Sea. The people in the private room looked at each other. There were too many legends about the Starfall Sea in the Trichiliocosm. Basically, those below the spirit-severing stage would die as soon as they stepped in. They were considered the best of the younger generation, but they were still at a loss when it came to the Starfall Sea. Most importantly, with their current abilities, they didn't even know where Meng-Chi was in the Starfall Sea. Even if they knew and joined forces to break in, the final result was that not only would they not be able to save Meng-Chi, but they would also be wiped out. There's no other way. Meng-Chi stood up. I have to go to the Heaven and Earth Bookhouse. Heaven and Earth Bookhouse? Xue Jinwen suddenly remembered that Meng-Chi had mentioned it before. It was a place where they could use spiritual points to borrow books. I'll go with you. She quickly stood up as well. We'll go too. Chu Tianfeng immediately said. No. Su Junmo shook his head. You can't go. Why? Xue Jinwen looked at him curiously. From his tone, Su Junmo seemed to know about the Heaven and Earth Bookhouse. Did he also know that one had to use 10 spiritual points to borrow a book there? Those were spiritual points, not spirit stones. There's no danger there. Meng-Chi can go by himself. Su Junmo paused, glanced at the others, and continued. What we need to do now is to collect as much information about the Starfall Sea as possible. In short, no matter what method we use, the more, the faster, the better. Xue Jinwen glanced at Su Junmo's face. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Although she was still very curious, she didn't insist on accompanying Meng-Chi to the Heaven and Earth Bookhouse. Meng-Chi, Su Junmo looked at Meng-Chi. Can you guarantee that the place you are at is safe? As soon as he said this, everyone looked at Meng-Chi again. They had never heard that there was a safe place in the Starfall Sea. Now, either Meng-Chi had made a mistake, and she wasn't in the Starfall Sea, or there was indeed such a place in the center of the Starfall Sea. Otherwise, with her cultivation level, she would have been torn to pieces by the murderers inside long ago. Yes, Meng-Chi nodded and said firmly. In fact, she didn't know if the Great Desolate Island was safe or not. However, with Yin Qingyan by her side, no matter how dangerous the place was, it seemed to be safe for her. Okay. Su Junmo nodded slightly. We'll meet here again after 24 hours. Meng-Chi, can you do that? Yes. Meng-Chi nodded without hesitation. You can go to the Heaven and Earth Bookhouse. We'll leave first. By the way, Su Junmo took out his nameplate. Let's exchange the information on the nameplates so that it's easier to contact each other. Okay. Meng-Chi quickly took out her nameplate and exchanged it with the others. This way, she could contact them just like she did with Xue Jinwen. As long as they were in the heavens beyond heaven, it would be very convenient for them to contact each other. I'll leave first. Meng-Chi turned and walked out of the door. Wait. Xue Jinwen chased after her and stopped her. Meng-Chi, do you have enough spirit points? She didn't know how many books she needed to borrow and how many spirit points she needed to go to the Heaven and Earth Bookhouse to check out the books related to the Starfall Sea. Although Meng-Chi had said before that she had a lot of spirit points, it was still not enough. Xue Jinwen was still a little worried. Before Meng-Chi could answer, Chu Tianfeng spoke first. Damn. Spirit points. Does it cost spirit points to borrow books from the Heaven and Earth Book House? Yes. Xue Jinwen looked at him, then looked at Su Junmo and said, 10 spirit points can be used to borrow a book. 10. Even though Chu Tianfeng was from a large sect, he was shocked when he heard this number. I heard that spirit points are very hard to come by. The elders in our sect mentioned that if we want to open a shop here, we need to use spirit points. Chu Tianfeng didn't say something. Opening a shop for a month would only cost a few dozen spirit points. Let me see. Meng Qi glanced at him and held the nameplate to check her remaining spirit points. I still have. It seems to have increased again. Now it's 123,000 spirit points. Xue Jinwen, Chu Tianfeng, Qin Xiuma, even Su Junmo. He looked up at the roof. She must be scared. It should be enough. Meng Qi put away the nameplate. I'll go first. Thank you for your hard work. She saluted everyone, turned around, opened the door and walked out. More than 20,000 spirit points. The door closed again. Chu Tianfeng still hadn't recovered from the shock. Is she the cultivator with the most spirit points in the entire sky beyond heaven? And she's only a golden core cultivator. If this gets out, those sect elders will die of jealousy, right? You might as well count all the spirit points that those sects have. Meng Qi can definitely be ranked in the top 10. Su Junmo wanted to roll his eyes again. As far as I know, it's only 800 spirit points to exchange for an opportunity to explore the blessed enclave in the surrounding mountains. Chu Tianfeng didn't say anything. He looked at the silent Qin Xiuma thoughtfully. The two looked at each other and quickly skipped the topic. Are we going to collect information about the fallen star sea now? Yes. Su Junmo didn't want to talk about this issue. Let's split up. We'll meet here at this time tomorrow. Chu Tianfeng and Qin Xiuma quickly left. Even Xikong Xing left. She said that she wanted to find a way to contact her father and see if her rich father knew about the fallen star sea. Only Xue Jinwen walked to Su Junmo after they all left. What's the matter? Su Junmo looked at her. Did you guide Meng Qi to the Heaven and Earth Book House? She smiled and asked softly. Yes. Su Junmo nodded. Xue Jinwen reached out and touched a few strands of hair on her temples. I've been in Sky Beyond Heaven for several years, but I've never heard of the Heaven and Earth Book House. Meng Qi mentioned it and said that she needed spirit points to borrow the books inside. I thought she met a swindler. What are you trying to say? Su Junmo stared at her for a while and asked slowly. I'm just a little worried about her, Xue Jinwen said. If I knew it was you who asked her to go, I wouldn't be so worried. Let's go, she said again. I hope Meng Qi can come back safely from the fallen star sea. Where are you going? Su Junmo didn't move. Instead he asked. The Xue family, Xue Jinwen said. I'm going to find my elder brother. But haven't you left the Xue family? Su Junmo frowned. You can wait for us in Rosy Lane. Su Junmo, you should have heard about the barrier of the Xinglin Holy Land tournament. Xue Jinwen didn't beat around the bush. I've always been curious about why you were willing to befriend the Wind Alliance and the Xue family. After all, as the envoy of the Demon Realm and the future leader of the Sky Demon Arctic Fox clan, the major sects of the Four Realms would be happy to befriend you. Medical cultivators have long lost their ancient glory in the 3,000 worlds. Sword cultivators and magic cultivators are the strongest in the world. Xue Jinwen's eyes moved. Why do you value the Wind Alliance so much? Xue Jinwen seemed to be asking a question, but it also seemed like she was talking to herself. Without waiting for Su Junmo to answer, she continued. Later, I accidentally found out that you seem to be quite interested in the Xinglin Holy Land. You should also know that the Wind Alliance can open the barrier of the tournament for the second time in 10 years. For thousands of years, the 12 medical cultivator sects of the Four Realms can enter the barrier of the tournament 3 times every 10 years. Everyone knows why we're going in, but everyone has a tacit understanding and won't say anything. Xue Jinwen ran her fingers through her hair again. 2,000 years ago, the 3,000 worlds suffered another catastrophe. The 2 major medical cultivator sects in the south and east. You should have heard of them. They were once powerful sects that could be compared to the Shui family, but they were tragically wiped out. Su Junmo's expression changed slightly. Of course he knew about this matter. It spread throughout the three realms, and the demon realm's cruel and murderous reputation shocked the entire three realms. After that incident, the relationship between the demon realm and the 3,000 worlds was further eased. The reason why he could come and go freely in the 3,000 worlds and be treated as a guest of honor by many sects was also because of this matter. I know, Su Junmo said in a deep voice. The two major sects had thousands of people. One of the sects even had a dongjin cultivator, but no one survived. The people were in a terrible situation, and their inheritance was cut off. The 3,000 worlds were furious, and when the news reached the ears of the ancestors of the family, they felt even more sad for the death of their own kind. Medical cultivators. Shui Jinwen sighed softly. They can be considered to have saved the dying and healed the injured. Countless people survived, but they were so weak that they couldn't protect themselves at all. Su Junmo did not say anything. However, according to the records in the family's library, it was not like this in the ancient times tens of thousands of years ago. Medical cultivators were once on par with sword cultivators and dharma cultivators. Not only could they save people, but they could also hurt people. At least, they could protect themselves, and they would not be reduced to ghosts under the butcher's knife and be at the mercy of others, Shui Jinwen said. Therefore, since then the Medical Cultivators Dharma Assembly Alliance was born. All the medical cultivators in the world, regardless of whether they belonged to the 12, no. At that time, only the top 10 medical cultivator sects were left. Su Junmo's expression changed slightly, and his gaze became sharper than before. You guessed it. Shui Jinwen was attentive to begin with. She saw the change in Su Junmo's expression and smiled indifferently. It doesn't matter if you're from a small sect or an itinerant cultivator. As long as you're a medical cultivator and are outstanding enough, you can get a chance to enter the Apricot Forest Competition's barrier once every 10 years. The 12 medical cultivator sects spent thousands of years, but they could not decipher the secret of the Apricot Forest Competition's barrier. They could not pass the test. That tragic extermination scared them, and they couldn't wait any longer. Although everyone was reluctant to give up such an opportunity, the Apricot Forest sacred ground was passed down from ancient times. It is said that it contains the last will of an ancient medical cultivator. As long as you pass the test, you can become his successor. Not only can you inherit his medical skills, but you can also learn the powerful attack methods of the ancient medical cultivators. However, so much time has passed, and the 12 medical cultivator sects can be considered to have produced many capable people. Every 10 years, a new genius will appear. Shui Jinwen said slowly, this Apricot Forest Competition's barrier, but no one has ever passed the test. Sword cultivators and dharma cultivators are getting stronger and stronger. The stronger they are, the more dangerous places they can explore. Some of the originally extinct legacies are gradually reappearing in the world. The weapon cultivators have also suddenly obtained ancient legacies and are gradually revitalizing. Shui Jinwen looked at Su Junmo and raised her eyebrows. The demon realm has always produced many capable people, and there are many powerhouses. The current demon lord is said to be a rare genius in the Sky Demon White Tiger clan. As for the demon realm, she sighed softly. They have always been restless, coveting the vast world of the Trichiliocosm and the rich resources. They are always looking for opportunities to invade. Even my father is starting to become anxious. They are even discussing that they will only keep one chance for the current top 10 medical cultivator sects, and give up the other 2 chances. After all, the weapon cultivators are rising again, making everyone feel that as long as they can pass the barrier test and obtain the legacy of that powerful senior, then the medical cultivators can be revitalized like the weapon cultivators. Shui Jinwen's voice was gentle and pleasant as she told these secrets. Although it was a secret, there were actually many people who knew about it. Even if 2 of the 12 medical cultivator sects in the 4 realms had been completely destroyed, there were still many families like the Shui family that had been passed down for 10,000 years. There were many disciples who knew about the history of medical cultivators. Xue Jinwen reached out and tucked the strand of hair on her cheek behind her ear. Meng Qi passed the barrier test in front of almost all the medical cultivators in the 4 realms, as well as the medical cultivator sections. Even though she rejected Senior Lin Yan in the end, she was recognized and became her friend. She looked at Su Junmo and said softly, "I guess father will think of a way to let big brother marry Meng Qi." "What?" Su Junmo did not expect this at all and blurted out, "My big brother Xue Qingxian." Xue Jinwen looked at the shock on his face, and a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. But she quickly pulled herself together and continued, "I'm not boasting, but he is indeed a rare genius among the younger generation of medical cultivators. He is the future head of the Xue family, and may even be the future head of the Wind Alliance. He is handsome and gentle, and is also the most suitable Dao companion in the hearts of many female cultivators. So now that Meng Qi is like this, maybe we can ask the Wind Alliance for help." Xue Jinwen said, "My big brother even gave his blood moon to her. Even without father, I think he won't stand by and do nothing." Xue Jinwen paused and said, "If Meng Qi did not fall into the Starfall Sea, I would not have mentioned this. But now, with just the few of us, I'm afraid." She did not finish speaking, but Su Junmo also understood what she meant. He actually had a very strong force in his hands that he could mobilize. It was the secret guards personally trained by his lord. Although his lord seemed to dote on her a little, to mobilize them to save Meng Qi, a golden core cultivator, Su Junmo did not dare to make a decision on his own. What should he do? Even for him, it was rare for him to hesitate. Xue Jinwen definitely did not say so much just to let the Xue family take action. She was saying, Su Junmo was smart and quickly reacted. Xue Jinwen probably thought that he was interested in Meng Qi, so she used her big brother to tell him. Xue Qingxian was not only the eldest son of the Xue family, but he also cultivated the way of medicine with Meng Qi. They were like-minded and could be considered a good match. Su Junmo was a little speechless. He really did not have that kind of thought about Meng Qi. Moreover, Xue Qingxian could not be a match for his lord. Fellow Daoist Su, Xue Jinwen said, "The Wind Alliance is the first medical cultivation sect in the Western land. That day, everyone saw with their own eyes that Senior Lin Yan gave Meng Qi a gift. They will not leave her to die." Okay. Su Junmo instantly made up his mind. The Starfall Sea was a dangerous place for heavenly demons like them. Although Meng Qi said that she was safe now, what would happen next? The more she stayed there, the more danger she would be in. Then, Xue Jinwen said, "After leaving heaven beyond heaven, can fellow Daoist Su come with me to find my big brother?" Okay. Once Su Junmo made a decision, he did not hesitate anymore. However, he also had to find a way to report this matter to his lord. There was no response from the communication jade slip. In this kind of matter, Su Junmo did not dare to make a decision without permission. "Let's go." He made up his mind and took the initiative to open the door of the private room. The two of them left heaven beyond heaven one after the other, and walked toward the teleportation formation. At this time, Meng Qi was already standing at the bottom of the Heaven and Earth Book House. "Senior." She looked up at the quiet Heaven and Earth Book House. The stairs spiraled up as if there was no end in sight. "Are you there?" Meng Qi retracted her gaze and looked around. The book house was still quiet. There was no one else except her. Meng Qi waited for a moment, and stepped forward. None of the bookshelves here were labeled with the contents of the jade slips and bamboo slips on the bookshelves. There were countless such bookshelves on each floor, and there were countless bamboo slips and jade slips on them. Meng Qi had no doubt that if she searched one by one, she probably would not find what she needed even if she spent all her spiritual points. "Senior." Meng Qi called out again. However, she still did not get a response. She could only pick up a jade slip on the bookshelf next to her and input some spiritual energy. What was recorded was the life story of a demon city lord in the demon realm. The demon city lord lived thousands of years ago, and was a name that Meng Qi had never heard of. Sigh, she sighed softly and put the jade slip back on the bookshelf. Searching one by one like this was similar to looking for a needle in a haystack. It was definitely not a solution. Forget it for today. She hesitated for a moment, turned around, and walked out of the Heaven and Earth book house in disappointment. Before leaving Heaven Beyond Heaven City, Meng-Chi subconsciously looked up at the highest floating island again. Then she stepped into the teleportation formation. Starfall Sea, Great Desolate Island. Meng-Chi slowly opened her eyes. The jade slip in Heaven Beyond Heaven in her hand was a little warm from her grip. Although she did not find what she needed, it was a pleasant surprise to see a few good friends in Heaven Beyond Heaven. Meng-Chi rested her chin on one hand and looked at the furnishings in the room. She did not know how long Qing Yan's Henjun planned to stay here. Also, why was he also in Starfall Sea? She was really curious. Meng-Chi remembered that when she first met Yun Qingyan in her previous life, she also descended from the sky like this. At that time, she was looking for a spiritual herb on a mountain. There were many poisonous snakes on the mountain, and the spiritual herb was a treasure that they guarded. Although Meng-Chi brought a lot of snake repellent powder, when she finally picked the spiritual herb, she was still surrounded by angry poisonous snakes. At that time, she was only in the 5th stage of the foundation establishment stage, and was extremely weak. After barely killing dozens of poisonous snakes, a snake took advantage of the situation, and fiercely bit her arm. It was at that time that Yun Qingyan descended from the sky like a god. He only waved his sleeve, and those snakes surged crazily like boiling water. In just a moment, they all died in front of Meng-Chi. Meng-Chi still remembered the first sentence he said to her was, "You're just a little foundation establishment cultivator. What are you doing here? Do you want to die?" Of course she wanted to die. At that time, she picked the spiritual herb to save a man in the city who had a strange disease. Yun Qingyan sent her all the way back to the city at the foot of the mountain. He seemed to be quite interested in watching Meng-Chi refine medicine, and then treat the patient. 3 days later, the man could finally get out of bed. Yun Qingyan also said to her, "Come with me. I'll teach you how to save your own life before saving others." Meng-Chi followed him. It was as if everything was so natural. She never asked who he was or where he came from. Meng-Chi also never doubted whether the man who saved her life had any ulterior motives. At that time, she was poor and was just a little foundation establishment cultivator. The only medical skills she had were probably not worth mentioning in the other party's eyes. The two of them naturally traveled together like this. Now that she thought about it, Meng-Chi felt a little amused. Yun Qingyan never even mentioned his name to her, nor did he say that he wanted to take her as his disciple. In the beginning, he didn't teach her everything. Yun Qingyan didn't even interfere with Meng-Chi's life. He said that he wanted Meng-Chi to go with him, but it was more like he followed Meng-Chi. Meng-Chi wanted to cultivate medical skills. She didn't just practice those medical skills. They passed by the cities and sects along the way. She treated people almost everywhere she went. Occasionally, she would pick up some injured cultivators along the way. As long as they were still breathing, Meng-Chi would find a way to save them. At the beginning, Yun Qingyan just watched curiously and occasionally protected her. At the beginning, Meng-Chi was very confused. She didn't know what the other was thinking. Then slowly, Yun Qingyan started to teach her formations. He disliked that the fire Meng-Chi used to make medicine was too weak, and changed the greatly fire formation for her to use. The formations he casually carved on the medicine cauldron could make medicine make it faster, and the Dan pills purer. When Meng-Chi had some whimsical and naive ideas, he would excitedly practice them with her, and help her think of solutions. Occasionally, he would find her cultivation progress slow, and teach her the Great Star Formation. He felt that medical cultivators were too weak at protecting themselves, and taught her how to forge silver medicine knives. Later, he even taught her the Great Four Formation. The two of them were neither friends nor disciples, but she followed Yun Qingyan for many years. Meng-Chi propped her chin on her hand, her gaze following the night pearl in front of her. Remembering the events of her previous life, she felt her heart warm. It seemed that it was the same in her previous life. From the first time they met, Yun Qingyan didn't like to explain himself, and his actions were a little unexpected. If it were someone else, they might think that he was a little strange. But she was willing to believe him. Meng-Chi narrowed her eyes slightly and looked around. Actually, if she wasn't afraid that her friends wouldn't find her, she would be worried. The Fallen Star Sea was the Fallen Star Sea. to be able to stay here with Yin Qingyan. Even if she went to the Great Devil Sky, she would probably think that it was a paradise, let alone the fallen star sea. Meng Qi stretched and was about to lie down to rest when she suddenly realized little Qi hadn't been released yet. No wonder she felt that something was missing just now. Meng Qi hurriedly took out the beast house from her storage bag. She suddenly jumped up. The beast house was empty. The little white tiger, which had always been lying lazily inside and resting on the bamboo bed in the beast house most of the time every day, was gone. Little Qi. Meng Qi was a little flustered. She knew that little Qi definitely couldn't have run into her storage bag from the beast house, but she still quickly checked her storage bag. Still nothing. Meng Qi raised the beast house, but the beast house was simple and could be seen at a glance. No matter how young little Qi was, it was still a sky demon white tiger. It couldn't have hidden in the beast house without her noticing. She instantly became even more flustered. Could it be that when she was swept into this place? No. Meng Qi opened her eyes in the fallen star sea and checked her storage bag immediately. Little Qi was definitely still there at that time. She suddenly jumped off the bed and quickly ran out of the door without even putting on her shoes properly. Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi didn't care if she would disturb the other party. Whenever she thought about where little Qi had landed in the fallen star sea, her heart would be in a mess. It was still so young, and it had suffered such serious injuries. If it encountered a ferocious bird like the Nirvana fierce eagle, it would definitely. Meng Qi suddenly shook her head and didn't dare to continue thinking. She quickly rushed to Yin Qingyan's room and knocked on the door. Qingyan's Henjun, are you asleep? Meng Qi took a deep breath and quickly said, I have something to ask of you. She paused and quickly said, I have a spirit beast. When I fell into the fallen star sea, it was still in my storage bag. But now, there's no trace of it in the beast house. Qingyan's Henjun? Meng Qi knocked on the door again. The room was silent. Yin Qingyan didn't seem to have made a sound from beginning to end. She instantly became even more worried. Qingyan's Henjun, are you okay? She knew that as powerful as he was, nothing could happen to him. However, Yin Qingyan clearly said that he was just opposite, and that Meng Qi could come to him if she needed anything. But now there was no movement. Meng Qi knocked on the door again. Qingyan's Henjun, are you in there? She became more and more uneasy. She waited for a while, but the room was still silent. Meng Qi gritted her teeth, turned her wrist, and took out a silver medicine knife. She held the silver medicine knife in her right hand, held her breath, and reached out to push the door open. The door wasn't locked, so Meng Qi opened it with a push. Yin Qingyan's room looked similar to hers. She carefully stepped into the room. Qingyan's Henjun? Meng Qi called out softly again. There was no one in the room. Meng Qi quickly looked around. Only in the innermost room, heavy gauze hung down, covering the large carved bed. Vaguely, there seemed to be a black shadow inside. Meng Qi took a deep breath, held the medicine knife tighter, and walked toward the bed. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The room was still quiet, and only her soft footsteps could be heard. Meng Qi walked to the bed and held the medicine knife tightly. Qingyan's Henjun, sorry to offend you. Then she reached out and lifted the heavy gauze. Chapter 100. Under the soft light of the night luminescent pearl, on a large carved bed covered by a veil. The bed was covered with a soft blanket, and a white tiger was lying lazily on it. The white tiger's eyes were closed, and its soft and smooth white fur emitted a soft glow under the night luminescent pearl. Except for several black cloud patterns on its forehead and back, its entire body was white. Its 2 front paws were crossed in front of its body, and its chin was resting on them. Its semicircular ears drooped slightly, and its furry claws were retracted into sharp claws. It looked quite harmless. Its abdomen, which was also covered with a thick layer of soft fur, was slowly rising and falling with its breathing. Is it asleep? She suddenly came back to her senses. Meng Qi. Meng Qi. She loosened her grip, and the cool veil slipped from her hand, gently brushing against her cheek. It covered the large bed again, and also covered the huge white tiger that seemed to be in a deep sleep. Meng Qi was in a daze, and suddenly staggered back a few steps. She reached out and rubbed her eyes. Just now did she see wrongly? Yes. She must have seen wrongly. She suddenly fell into the starfall sea, was frightened, and then little Chi went missing. She was too panicked, too worried about little Chi. 1200 KSW. Netming Chi subconsciously swallowed. Faintly, a somewhat scary thought flashed through her mind. The thought flashed through her mind so quickly that she couldn't catch it, and she didn't dare to catch it. Yes, that must be it. She must have seen wrongly, right? Meng Chi slowly took a deep breath, trying to calm herself down. The light of the night luminescent pearl shone on the veil, and she could still see the black shadow inside. Is he okay? After the initial shock, Meng Chi suddenly came back to her senses. If he was just asleep, he wouldn't have woken up when she knocked on the door, entered the room, and walked to the bed to lift the veil. She suddenly stepped forward and raised her hand. When her fingertips touched the veil, Meng Chi hesitated for a moment, and then decisively lifted the veil again. On the bed, the white tiger that was even taller and more slender than her was still lying there quietly. Meng Chi pursed his dry lips. Are you okay? She asked softly. The white tiger remained motionless. Even its ears did not react. You. Meng Chi looked at the huge creature in front of him that clearly looked like an adult white tiger. He carefully reached out his hand and gently pressed it on the other party's forehead. Her fingertips glowed slightly and the fluorescent light illuminated the white tiger's fur even more clearly. Meng Chi exerted a little force with his fingers and pressed on the thick white fur that looked neat and soft. It felt so good. It turned out that the big white tiger was also very easy to touch. Meng Chi suddenly came back to his senses and closed his eyes. Ugh! Just as her spiritual energy entered, it was as if it had sunk into an unfathomable abyss. Not only could she not feel anything, even the spiritual energy she sent in was instantly sucked away. Meng Chi took a deep breath and sent in a wisp of spiritual energy again. Similarly, as soon as the spiritual energy touched it, it was instantly sucked dry. She was stunned and opened her eyes to look at the white tiger. It was as if there was a bottomless abyss in the other party's body that could even devour spiritual energy. What was going on? Meng Chi was a little hesitant. The white tiger was still lying quietly on the bed. Even if she tossed and turned, it still did not wake up. Meng Chi stared at it for a while. At first glance, she felt that this white tiger was too big and too fierce. It was far less cute than the little white tiger, little Chi. But after staring for a while, the other party's eyes were still closed. Its chin was obediently resting on its furry paws. And its two white, fluffy semicircular ears were slightly drooping. It seemed a little cute. Meng Chi thought for a while and took out a silver needle from her storage bag. This was the silver needle that she bought from the Cloud Immortal Pavilion. It was commonly used by medical cultivators for diagnosis. Of course, it was not as useful as Xueqingxuan's natal magic treasure, but it was not bad for her now. She reached out and gently held the white tiger's paw. She held the other party's slightly cold paw in her palm, and then pinched the silver needle and pierced it. The tip of the needle flashed with a cold light. As soon as it touched the white tiger's paw, the white tiger, who had not moved for a long time, suddenly opened its eyes. There seemed to be stars flashing in its blue eyes, but they quickly disappeared into its cold eyes that were as deep as the night sky. Meng Chi did not have time to react at all. The paw that she carefully held in her palm suddenly turned over. She only felt a strong force on her shoulder. As the world spun, her back hit the soft quilt heavily. Meng Chi's chest sank. The white tiger's paw was already pressing her down on the bed. Meng Chi. She could not speak at all. The paw that was stepping on her exerted a little force, and all her unfinished words were blocked. Meng Chi subconsciously widened her eyes and looked up. She was instantly pressed down and could not breathe. The white tiger looked down at her condescendingly. Its eyes were cold, as if they were empty. There was not a trace of emotion that belonged to a living creature in them. But soon the indifference was dispelled, and the pair of blue eyes gradually focused. Meng Chi only felt the paw stepping on her chest slowly weaken, and fresh air poured into her nose again. I cough, 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 cough. She coughed a few more times and struggled to speak. I just cough, cough, cough. She was lying in the soft brocade quilt. Although the white tiger had relaxed its grip on her, it still pressed her down on the bed. It was as if it was warning Meng Chi that if she dared to struggle, It could take her life at any time. She stared unblinkingly at the white tiger on top of her, looking at the other party's eyes that were getting colder and colder. The soft white fur was in front of her eyes. When Meng Qi's breath brushed past, it could also make the white fur sway gently. She looked down at the paw pressing on her body. The semicircular paw was an enlarged version of Little Qi's paw. Meng Qi looked up at the white tiger in front of her. When Little Qi became an adult, it should also look like this, right? In an instant, countless thoughts surged into Meng Qi's mind like a tidal wave. Chu Tianfeng had shown her before. In the mirror image recorded in the spell, the one called True Lord White Tiger had the same magnificent beauty as her master. The demon cultivators of the Red Fox clan were inexplicably horrified when they saw the Four Extremes formation. Even Sikong Xing was so scared that he lost his fighting spirit and obediently bowed down to her to address her as Lord. The study of spell formations had long been lost in the 3,000 worlds. It was said that there were relatively complete inheritances in the demon realm and the devil realm that were passed down from the ancient times tens of thousands of years ago. And this valiant, strong, and beautiful heavenly demon white tiger in front of her. This was definitely not the white tiger spirit beast of the 3,000 worlds. They were not that strong, and they would not have eyes that were far more beautiful and bright than the purest sapphires in the world. Qingyan's Henjun? Meng Qi murmured and called out softly. The white tiger seemed to be stunned, and a complicated light flashed in his blue eyes. He slowly raised his paw. However, the moment he moved his paw, Meng Qi suddenly reached out and hugged his furry front paw tightly. Qingyan's Henjun. She called out again, but this time, there was no hesitation or doubt in her voice. Instead, it became firm. The white tiger. It's really. Meng Qi buried her head in the thick white fur on his chest and hugged his paw tightly. Sob. Is it really Qingyan's Henjun? She choked with sobs. For some reason, she suddenly felt like crying. Her nose was sour, and her eyes were hot. She couldn't control her tears at all, and they fell down. Meng Qi's tears wet the white fur on the white tiger's chest. As if he was scalded, he quickly shrank back. Why is she crying again? Wasn't she fine just now? Why is she crying again? Sob, 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 sob. Meng Qi hugged the white tiger's furry paw and couldn't control her tears at all. She didn't think much of it before. Even if the other party descended from the sky and appeared in the Starfall Sea to save her. However, probably because she had been with the illusion array for a month in the barrier of the grand competition, Meng Qi always felt that it was unreal. Following him all the way to the vast wilderness, she also felt that every step was like stepping on clouds. She was floating and couldn't step on solid ground. She obediently followed him here. The reason why she felt conflicted about whether to leave or stay was mostly because she still felt that it was unreal. That feeling was as if she had stepped into another illusion array. Meng Qi had even been secretly looking for new flaws that could allow her to see through this illusion array. Then, she realized that all of this was an illusion. Even if she went to the heavens beyond heaven and met her good friends, everyone would help her find a way to leave the Starfall Sea. There was still a voice in her heart that kept saying, "It's fake. It's all fake. You'll soon discover the truth, see through the illusion array, and wake up." Then, when she woke up from her dream, she would still be alone, and Yin Qingyan would still be on the horizon that she couldn't reach. But now, Meng Qi held the white tiger's paw tighter, and the soft white fur brushed against her palm. Not only did the other party tell her his name, but he even let her know his true identity. Did this mean that he wouldn't leave just like that? After saying goodbye, there would be no news of him from then on, and it would be a lifetime before they met again? Such a realistic touch made her slowly exhale. Her feet, which had been stepping on the clouds, finally stepped on solid ground. Sob. Meng Qi continued to sob softly. She pressed her forehead against the stiff white tiger's chest, and her tears fell even faster. The originally soft and smooth white fur on the white tiger's chest was messed up by her rubbing. Her tears condensed into puffs, and it looked rather pathetic. Don't. The white tiger slowly raised its other paw that wasn't hugged by Meng Qi. It paused in the air for a long time before it slowly put down its paw as if it had made up its mind. It gently pressed on Meng Qi's thin shoulder. Don't cry. Sob, 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 sob. Yes. Meng Qi replied in a choked voice. She had always listened to Yin Qingyan's words, and had never doubted it. Meng Qi immediately and slowly let go of the paw that she was hugging. She reluctantly stared at the paw that had been messed up by her. She took a deep breath and slowly sat up on her knees, placing her hands obediently on her knees. Meng Qi closed her eyes and took a few deep breaths before she managed to stop her tears from falling. She looked up. Her eyes, which had been washed by tears, were exceptionally bright. Her wet eyelashes made her look a little pitiful. Her eyes were red. The tip of her pretty nose was also red. The tears on her cheeks had yet to dry. She obediently knelt on the bed and quietly looked at the white tiger. The white tiger's paw that was stepping on the bed subconsciously tightened. He closed his eyes and ordered in a hoarse voice, "Close your eyes." "Oh." When Meng Qi spoke, her voice was still slightly nasal. She sounded a little aggrieved. However, she still closed her eyes as she was told. Her wet eyelashes drooped down and trembled slightly. She was like a butterfly whose wings were wet by the rain. She could only weakly lie in the palm of someone's hand and be at his mercy. The white tiger took a deep breath. For a moment, a tyrannical emotion that he had never felt before emerged from his heart. He wanted to do the same to her just now. He hurriedly stopped himself from continuing to think. The girl in the green robe in front of him was already obedient enough. The sky demon white tiger's slender and healthy figure suddenly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the handsome man in the white robe lazily sat cross-legged in front of Meng Qi. Yin Qingyan said faintly, "It's done." Meng Qi opened her left eye a little and quietly looked at Yin Qingyan. Then her eyes widened. Qingyan's Henjun. As expected, he didn't intend to hide his identity in front of her at all. In an instant, Meng Qi felt as if she heard the spring breeze warming up, and the sound of flowers blooming on the earth. She felt warm in her heart, and looked at Yin Qingyan with sparkling eyes. Meng Qi immediately sat more upright on her knees, and straightened her slightly thin back. "Yes." Yin Qingyan responded vaguely. In fact, Meng Qi's eyes were like this every time she looked at him, as if there were little stars twinkling in her eyes. However, it was the first time he saw such a happy expression. Even her eyebrows and eyes were like a spring breeze. Was she so happy just because she saw his real body? Yin Qingyan recalled that Meng Qi didn't seem to have any resistance to furry animals. His face slowly turned cold. He brushed his sleeve and covered his right hand. It seemed that Meng Qi's tears were still on it, which made him a little impatient. Neither of them noticed that the distance between the two of them was almost ambiguous. No matter how big the bed in Yin Qingyan's room was, the two of them weren't far from each other. As long as he stretched out his hand, he could pull Meng Qi to him. Yin Qingyan naturally couldn't do that. His gaze gradually turned cold. "Why are you looking for me?" Meng Qi didn't sleep and came to his room. She must have encountered something. Meng Qi was about to say that she was fine when she suddenly remembered the purpose of her visit. Qingyan's Henjun. She became anxious again. "I picked up an injured young sky demon white tiger." Meng Qi stammered and glanced at Yin Qingyan carefully. "Yin Qingyan. When it fell into the Starfall Sea, I checked it. It was still in the beast house in my storage bag. However, when I went back to my room to rest, little white tiger was no longer in the beast house." Meng Qi quickly said, "Qingyan's Henjun, please help me find him. He should be a cub of your race. However, I don't know why he fell into the tracheochasm and was seriously injured." Sky demon white tiger. Yin Qingyan stared at Meng Qi. "A cub?" "Yes." Meng Qi nodded. When she saw the big white tiger lying there earlier, she also wondered if it was little Qi. However, this thought only flashed through her mind. Meng Qi dismissed this idea first. Yin Qingyan could kill a Nirvana fierce eagle with a raise of her hand, and almost took her life. How could he be that pitiful little white tiger that was so seriously injured that she couldn't do anything about, and slept most of the day? So what if he's lost? Yin Qingyan lowered her eyes and said indifferently, "Why should we waste the effort to find him?" "No." Meng Qi raised her voice. Then, she suddenly realized that she was talking to Yin Qingyan. She quickly lowered her voice and explained softly, "He's injured. If he's also in the Starfall Sea, he definitely won't survive." "Oh." Yin Qingyan looked up slightly and looked at the green-robed girl kneeling in front of her. You care about him a lot? Yes. Mengqi nodded. She suddenly blushed. In the beginning, she had only wanted to heal little Seven because of his strange and serious injuries. As a doctor, she had wanted to heal him. At that time, Chu Tianfeng showed her the mirror image of perfected Lord White Tiger. At that time, Mengqi didn't know that the master she missed so much in her previous life was perfected Lord White Tiger. However, since he looked exactly like her master, she couldn't just leave little Qi in the lurch. Later, after spending so much time together, Mengqi, who didn't have any resistance to cute fluffy animals, really liked this little guy. She really couldn't ignore his life and death now. If you care so much, you can find him yourself. Yin Qingyan said indifferently. You don't have to tell me. Huh. Mengqi was stunned. Yin Qingyan didn't care? Wasn't little Qi also a heavenly demon white tiger? Did she make a mistake? It seemed, it wasn't impossible. At that time, Chu Tianfeng only told her, and she just listened. However, little Qi really looked like Yin Qingyan's real body. Her eyes in particular were as clear and beautiful as sapphires. What's wrong? Yin Qingyan looked at Mengqi, who was staring blankly at her, and asked lazily, Are you afraid of the Starfall Sea and don't dare to find him yourself? Yes. The girl in the green robe blushed again. She lowered her head, revealing the back of her fair and delicate neck. Qingyan's Henjun, can you help me find little Qi, the heavenly demon little white tiger? Mengqi murmured. She rarely asked for help, let alone Yin Qingyan. Previously, she didn't ask him to leave the Starfall Sea. Instead, she chose to find a way herself. Now for the sake of little Qi, Mengqi couldn't care less anymore. As soon as she said that, her face burned even hotter. Her cheeks turned crimson, and her long eyelashes trembled nervously. Yin Qingyan raised his eyebrows and looked at Mengqi. You're begging me for him? Yes. Mengqi's voice was even lower as she responded softly. She also felt that she was too thick-skinned. She didn't protect little Qi well, and now she had to beg Yin Qingyan to help. Okay, Yin Qingyan said lightly. Thank you Qingyan's Henjun. Hearing this, Mengqi raised her head and looked at him with unusual joy. She turned around and nimbly jumped off the bed. Can we leave now? Mengqi. Yin Qingyan also stood up. He took a step forward and stood in front of Mengqi. Why did you save him? Yin Qingyan walked forward and asked casually. You also said that he was a cub of my clan. It shouldn't have anything to do with you. When I picked him up, he was already injured. Mengqi hurriedly caught up with him. She didn't expect Yin Qingyan to ask this and subconsciously added. He was quite badly injured. At that time she hesitated. Although she half-jokingly said that she didn't want to save him because he was a little male tiger, she would leave him alone. However, she knew that she would not leave him there. Otherwise, she would never be able to feel at ease. Because he was injured, you picked him up and wanted to save him. Ha! Yin Qingyan didn't stop walking. At this time, night had completely fallen around the great desolate island. After the two of them left the manor, the surroundings were dark except for the starlight. It looked a little strange. Yes, Mengqi said. She couldn't tell Yin Qingyan the other reason. He didn't remember what she had experienced in her previous life. Mengqi looked up at the other party's side profile. Yin Qingyan's perfect face was covered with a layer of soft starlight. Under the starry night, Mengqi couldn't see his expression clearly, and didn't know whether he was happy or angry. Mengqi. Yin Qingyan took another step forward. The Starfall Sea was already in front of them. The starlight in the sky above the Starfall Sea was getting brighter and brighter. It was reflected in the water and looked magnificent, mysterious and beautiful. The Starfall Sea is an uncrossable creature. No one can come to the great desolate island except on the one-leaf dream boat. Yin Qingyan reached out and pointed at the quiet Starfall Sea. He said slowly, so when we crossed the sea and arrived here, your little white tiger was probably swallowed by the Starfall Sea and left inside. Mengqi. She widened her eyes and looked at Yin Qingyan in disbelief. After 24 hours, all the creatures that fall into the sea will be turned into the 5-spirit vital energy. Yin Qingyan continued. It's less than 24 hours now. You still have a chance to save him. He waved his sleeve and the canoe that brought them to the great desolate island drifted over and stopped on the shore. If you want to save him, you have to go by yourself. This one-leaf dreamboat can't carry a third person. Yin Qingyan said calmly, but you have to think carefully. In another 2 hours, the Starfall Sea will explode and last for 24 hours. If you can't find him in 2 hours and can't return to the great desolate island in time, you will also fall into the sea and be swallowed by the Starfall Sea. You will become one of the thousands of 5 spirit vital energy here. Yin Qingyan's eyes were as bright as stars. He looked into Meng Qi's eyes. Do you want to go? Meng Qi. Meng Qi took a deep breath and turned her head to look at the vast and boundless Starfall Sea. She probably wouldn't even be able to search through a small area of the Starfall Sea in 2 hours. If she couldn't come back, she would also fall into the sea. There were only 2 hours. Meng Qi gritted her teeth and jumped onto the one-leaf dream boat. Qingyan's Henjun. She asked clearly. Do you have a paddle? Meng Qi knew that she couldn't be like Yin Qingyan and make the boat as obedient as the wind in the Starfall Sea. But she still had to give it a try. She could first search along the way she came. Maybe little Qi was waiting for her to save him on the way here. Yin Qingyan didn't say anything. He stood tall and quietly on the shore, looking deeply at Meng Qi. Do you really want to go? He asked slowly. I have to try. Meng Qi raised her eyebrows. There are still 2 hours, right? Okay. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeves. The boat didn't move. A soft wind suddenly wrapped around Meng Qi's waist and rolled her back to his side. Chapter 101. Meng Qi. Yin Qingyan put her down steadily. Let's go back. But little Qi will be fine. Yin Qingyan's tone was indifferent. After he finished speaking, he walked back the way he came. But Meng Qi frowned. She had never doubted his words. Not in the past and not now. She stood where she was and watched as Yin Qingyan walked away. He was dressed in a white robe, and his figure looked cold and lonely under the starlight. What's wrong? Yin Qingyan stood still. He turned sideways and looked at Meng Qi. You don't believe me? Meng Qi quickly shook her head. The worry on her face was still there, but her gaze towards Yin Qingyan was as clear as ever. There was no doubt in her eyes. Then come back with me. Yin Qingyan repeated. Meng Qi still didn't move. She just stared at Yin Qingyan and looked into his eyes. Meng Qi pursed her lips again and again. Her heart was beating faster and faster in her chest. A terrifying thought kept jumping in her mind. She tried her best to suppress it, but the thought became clearer and clearer. Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi murmured. Yin Qingyan raised his eyebrows and turned around to meet the green-robed girl's gaze. Meng Qi stared at him in a daze. The thought became clearer and clearer, and her heart beat faster and faster as if it was going to jump out of her throat. That. It was rare for Meng Qi to stutter. It's little Qi is also from the heavenly demon White Tiger clan. Oh. Yin Qingyan nodded expressionlessly. Although it looks like a young white tiger, it looks like you, Meng Qi said. I know. Yin Qingyan was still expressionless and nodded again. Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi took a deep breath. She looked at Yin Qingyan's perfect facial features. After being covered by a layer of starlight, they were dyed with a faint mystery, but they made her look even more handsome. Meng Qi suddenly asked, Are you little Qi? As soon as she spoke, her cheeks heated up. Before Yin Qingyan could reply, Meng Qi's face had already turned red. She had the same thought before, but Yin Qingyan was simply too strong. She really couldn't link him to the sickly little Qi, who could easily kill a super-strong exotic beast like the Nirvana Ardent Hawk. After all, Meng Qi had personally checked little Qi's injuries. Therefore, it wasn't that Meng Qi hadn't thought about it before, but she rejected this ridiculous idea first. When Yin Qingyan agreed to help her find the little white tiger, she was even more certain that the other party couldn't be little Qi. But now, he said to go back, and that little Qi would be fine. Qingyan's Henjun wasn't such a cold and heartless person who didn't care about other people's lives. He never was. The thought that she had rejected suddenly appeared again, and it became clearer and clearer. Meng Qi's cheeks were red, and she was so hot that she was about to smoke. She still raised her head slightly and looked at Yin Qingyan without blinking. Under the starlight, the white-robed man's eyes were even brighter than the stars in the night sky. Do you want me to be little Qi? Yin Qingyan asked after a moment of silence. Meng Qi didn't quite understand. What did this have to do with whether or not he wanted her to be little Qi? Meng Qi. Yin Qingyan's lips curled up as he looked at the girl in the green robe with a faint smile. Meng Xiuya's face was full of confusion. He felt that he needed to remind her of what she had done in the past. Think about what you have done to little Qi, Yin Qingyan said. Ah. Meng Qi was stunned, and countless scenes flashed through her mind. When they first met, Meng Qi felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and she was completely stunned. When they first met, she seemed to. Meng Qi suddenly lowered her eyes, not daring to continue looking at Yin Qingyan. Her cheeks were already red, and now they were so hot that they were about to explode. Even her temples seemed to be throbbing. Meng Qi. Yin Qingyan slowly walked toward her. Even with her head lowered, Meng Qi could see the black boots that stopped in front of her. And the hem of the other party's robe swayed gently in the night with Yin Qingyan's movements. Little Qi is absolutely fine. She is very safe now. Yin Qingyan lowered his head and looked at the girl's long black hair and fair and slender neck. There was a smile in his eyes, and even the corners of his lips were raised higher than before. Do you understand? Yin Qingyan said. I understand. Meng Qi's voice trembled slightly as she answered softly. Do you want to go back with me now? Yes. Meng Qi replied repeatedly. Let's go. Yin Qingyan said and turned around. Meng Qi still didn't follow. She hesitated and quickly glanced at Yin Qingyan. Although mentioning this question would inevitably bring up the awkwardness when they first met. But, Qingyan's Meng Qi called him. She held back for a moment and blurted out. Have you recovered from your previous injuries? No wonder she always felt that Yin Qingyan was a little breathless and sounded very tired several times before. I'm fine for the time being. Yin Qingyan's smile deepened. Thank you for your concern. That's good. Meng Qi murmured again. She happened to be able to see Yin Qingyan's hand hanging by his side. His fingers were long and slender, and his nails were smooth and neat. What did he mean by, I'm fine for the time being? Meng Qi was a little confused. Did he mean that he was fine for the time being in the Starfall Sea, but he didn't intend to be cured? Fanchuan Kanshu. Could he let her check his internal injuries? Meng Qi's fingers that were hanging by her side bent slightly. At that time, little Qi was so badly injured that she remembered that his spiritual ocean was almost torn into pieces. She couldn't see the formed spiritual ocean in his body at all. It was also because of this that she thought that the little white tiger was a cub. Meng Qi once heard Su Junmo nag that the spiritual ocean of a heavenly demon was somewhat different from the spiritual ocean of cultivators from the 3,000 worlds. Once they reached adulthood, they would be as tough as leather. No matter how badly injured they were, it was very rare for their entire spiritual ocean to completely fall apart like cultivators. Once the spiritual ocean of cultivators from the 3,000 worlds fell apart, their cultivation would be reduced to nothing. Unless a heaven realm medical cultivator helped, there was no possibility of recovery. Demon cultivators were different. The spiritual ocean of an adult demon cultivator was extremely difficult to tear apart. At that time, Su Junmo was so badly injured that his entire spiritual ocean was almost occupied by the divine devouring vine. But his spiritual ocean was not damaged at all. After Meng Qi cured him, he also recovered very quickly. However, that day, Meng Qi really didn't find the existence of a spiritual ocean in the little white tiger's body. That was why she thought that he was still a cub heavenly demon white tiger. What about now? Had Yin Qingyan's spiritual ocean been repaired? He said that he was fine for the time being. Was he like Ji Wujiang, who was sometimes strong and sometimes weak because of his spiritual ocean? She pursed her lips. An injury to one's spiritual ocean was extremely serious for any cultivator from any world. Even if he had enough starlight, it wouldn't be possible to repair it in a short period of time. Could she ask? Meng Qi hesitated, but she had to mention what happened back then again. Her face burned again. Why don't we just forget about it today? Tomorrow. When the atmosphere was not so awkward tomorrow, everyone might forget about what happened tonight. Yes. She would ask tomorrow. Yin Qingyan did not move. He looked around and said to Meng Qi, "You can start refining the 5-spirit cauldron." He pondered for a moment and said, "There are 2 materials that are extremely rare in the 3,000 worlds. You fell into the Starfall Sea by chance. You are quite lucky." Meng Qi wanted to cry. He even knew about the 5-spirit cauldron, and that she was short of materials. What was the difference between Yin Qingyan admitting that he was little Qi? She regretted it so much. Why did she act smart and ask Yin Qingyan that question? Boo-hoo, what did she do to little Qi? Meng Qi did not dare to think about it. Anyway, it was, she had committed a heinous crime. The Starfall Sea is full of the 5-spirit primordial Qi. Yin Qingyan continued, "It is the best place to refine the 5-spirit cauldron." He finally turned around and walked forward. Meng Qi didn't even dare to raise her head. She obediently lowered her head and followed behind him, slowly moving forward. In the ancient times, tens of thousands of years ago, although the 5-spirit primordial Qi was not common, it could be found in several places. Your senior Lin Yan. Yin Qingyan's eyes flashed with hostility. When she thought of Lin Yan, it was hard not to think of Ji Wujiang. The extreme and evil black-robed young man had once fought side by side with Meng Qi. In the end, she willingly stayed to live and die with him. The friendship cultivated like this was obviously different from other people's. Yes, Meng Qi's voice was as soft as a mosquito's. The era when she grew up is a little different from now. The 5-spirit cauldron is her natal magic treasure. She generously gave it to you, but you did not acknowledge her as your master. Do you regret it? Yin Qingyan asked. I don't regret it. Meng Qi was still very firm when it came to this matter. I will inherit senior Lin Yan's will. In the future, whether it is the 5-spirit cauldron or the medical skills and spells she passed on to me, I will find the most suitable successor for her. But I don't regret it, she added. Meng Qi's words were firm, but when she thought of the things she had done to the little white tiger, she felt that her future was bleak. In her previous life, she was very respectful and had never done anything to make Yin Qingyan unhappy. In the end, she did not receive her approval and was barred from the sect. Meng Qi sighed softly in her heart. Now she could only take one step at a time. No matter what, she was better than in her previous life after this reunion. She was no longer a weak foundation establishment cultivator. When Meng Qi thought of this, she could not help but secretly look up and secretly glance at Yin Qingyan. The other party's expression was calm, and she could not tell if she was happy or angry. As if sensing her gaze, Yin Qingyan glanced at her. Meng Qi. She quickly retracted her gaze and continued to look down obediently. From the corner of her eye, she could only see Yin Qingyan's white robe fluttering lightly. Do you know the origin of the 5-spirit cauldron's name? Yin Qingyan asked again. Yes. The book on refining the 5-spirit cauldron states that the elixirs can be changed into the 5 elements according to one's needs, Meng Qi said. This way, even the same elixir can be refined into different elements. That's right, Yin Qingyan said. After one's cultivation level increases, even spirit energy can be refined into the 5-spirit vital energy. Yes. Why can starlight repair the spiritual sea? Yin Qingyan continued. It can be used to refine spirit energy into the 5-spirit vital energy and accumulate it in stardust. Meng Qi was stunned for a moment, and a faint idea emerged in her mind. She subconsciously turned her head and looked at the starfall sea around the great desolate island. Could it be that this place, whether it's demon cultivators, fiendish cultivators, or human cultivators in the 3 realms, when their spiritual sea is damaged, they can only rely on the 5-spirit vital energy to repair it? Yin Qingyan continued, which is starlight. Meng Qi was stunned again. She was still looking at the starfall sea. Yin Qingyan said that the starfall sea was filled with the 5-spirit vital energy. Didn't that mean Meng Qi suddenly turned her head and looked at Yin Qingyan excitedly? Qingyan's Henjun, there's so much 5-spirit vital energy in the starfall sea. Doesn't that mean that no matter how damaged one's spiritual sea is, as long as one can enter this place, they can be repaired? Her eyes were bright and full of excitement. Even the awkwardness just now was temporarily forgotten. Yin Qingyan looked at her deeply. The faint smile in his eyes slowly froze. Meng Qi soon couldn't bear his gaze. She quickly turned her head and muttered as if she was talking to herself. Is it more useful than starlight? Yin Qingyan looked at her quietly. Did Meng Qi want to save Ji Wujiang? His voice gradually turned cold. It's more useful than starlight, but you need to be alive to get here. You also need to be able to withstand the violent power of the Starfall Sea, which is enough to destroy the world. Huh. Meng Qi frowned. Qingyan's Henjun, is there nothing you can do? What do you think the one-leaf dreamboat is used for? Yin Qingyan said indifferently. Meng Qi didn't notice the change in his tone. She turned her head and looked at the Starfall Sea. Under the starry sky, the calm surface of the sea reflected the stars in the sky. At this time, the Starfall Sea was really as beautiful as the world of immortals. One couldn't imagine the terrible power contained in it. It seemed that this was the only way. Meng Qi nodded vigorously. She directly took out the bamboo slip that recorded the refining method of the 5-spirit cauldron from her storage bag. Qingyan's Henjun, I've formed my gold core now. I'm going to start refining the 5-spirit cauldron. In fact, Meng Qi was still a little hesitant about whether she should use the 5-spirit cauldron as her natal magic weapon or not. Meng Qi felt that a natal magic weapon like Shui Qingxian was also very useful. Among the medical cultivators in the Trichiliocosm, there were many who chose silver needles as their natal magic weapon. After the diagnosis, it was the treatment. If one couldn't even figure out what the other party's problem was, it was sometimes difficult to change one's fate no matter how powerful the medicinal pills were. She was very happy after getting the 5-spirit cauldron. Ji Wujiang also said that it would be very powerful if she used it as her natal magic weapon. Meng Qi was still a little hesitant. For her, the medicinal cauldron she bought was enough. At worst, she could buy a better medicinal cauldron when her cultivation level was higher in the future. But now, her last trace of doubt was completely dispelled. Meng Qi said again, Qingyan's Henjun, please guide me. Where can I find the heavenly materials and earthly treasures to refine the 5-spirit cauldron in the Starfall Sea? As she spoke, she bowed respectfully to Yin Qingyan. Thank you, Qingyan's Henjun. Yin Qingyan's eyes flashed slightly, and it was even colder than before. You want to refine the 5-spirit cauldron? He had taken the initiative to propose this. Otherwise, the other party might not have thought of it. However, when he thought about it, Meng Qi didn't seem to have planned to refine the 5-spirit cauldron so early. Now that he understood the 5-spirit cauldron and the use of the 5-spirit primordial energy, he immediately became impatient. To save Ji Wujiang? Yin Qingyan's eyelashes drooped, covering the light in his eyes. His gaze became dark, and his voice became slightly hoarse. It should be recorded on the bamboo slip that refining the 5-spirit cauldron requires 5 pure 5-elements materials. Yes, Meng Qi said. She held the bamboo slip with both hands and respectfully handed it to Yin Qingyan. Qingyan's Henjun, please take a look. No need. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeve and rejected Meng Qi. Meng Qi didn't hide anything from him, and her completely unguarded attitude made him feel a little better. However, as soon as he thought that this was for Ji Wujiang, his gaze became more and more serene. You've seen Jiyu before. Yin Qingyan said, the sky dragon crystal, which represents water, and the chaos vine, which represents wood, can only be found in the demon realm and the devil realm, respectively, but they can be bought in the outland. Yes. Meng Qi had never heard of these two things. They were probably expensive in the outland, and he didn't know if he had enough spirit stones. The remaining Brahma sand and nether iron can only be found in the Starfall Sea, Yin Qingyan said. The 5-spirit cauldron needs these 5 materials of the 5 elements to be successfully refined, but you don't need to find all 5 materials to start refining, Yin Qingyan said. Yes. Meng Qi held the bamboo slip and nodded. It's also recorded that you can start refining with just 1 material. Every time you find a material, you can improve by 1 realm. Therefore, when the 5-spirit cauldron is completed, it's already a 6th realm natal magic weapon. Cultivators started from Qi refining, gold core, nascent soul, spirit severing, insightful emptiness. Insightful emptiness was the 6th realm. And once the 5-spirit cauldron was completed, It was equivalent to a magic weapon refined by an insightful emptiness cultivator. Moreover, cultivators who used natal magic weapons were not limited by their own realms. In other words, if Mengqi could find 5 heavenly materials and produce treasures and refine the 5-spirit cauldron, then she would have a 6th realm magic weapon that only insightful emptiness cultivators could have. She could even directly refine a 6th realm elixir that could be used by insightful emptiness cultivators. With the help of the Grand Fire Formation, she could refine a 7th realm elixir that only insightful emptiness cultivators could use. Of course, Mengqi also knew that it would be difficult to find these 5 heavenly materials and produce treasures. She might not even be able to find 3 of them when she reached the insightful emptiness stage. This was also one of the reasons why she was hesitant to use the 5-spirit cauldron as her natal magic weapon, because the materials were too rare. For example, if Yun Qingyan didn't say anything, Mengqi had never heard of Ming Tai and Fan Sha, so she didn't know where to find them. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Yun Qingyan turned around. Now go back and rest. His voice was a bit cold, and he left with a flick of his sleeve. Mengqi didn't think much of it. Yun Qingyan was only fine for the time being. His words also meant to tell her that he hadn't recovered from his injuries. On the way back to the manor, Mengqi couldn't help but glance at him from time to time. Even when she lay on the bed in her room again, she still felt that it was a bit unreal. Too many things had happened today. Mengqi widened her eyes and looked at the light muslin bed curtain in the darkness. She saw Yun Qingyan's real body and then realized that he was actually. Mengqi turned over and buried her head in the blanket. As long as this thought flashed through her mind, she felt extremely ashamed. She seemed to have rubbed her head and pinched her claws and her ears and her chin. Mengqi reached out and quickly knocked her head several times. Why couldn't she control herself back then? Even if it was a young sky demon white tiger, it was still a great sky demon, a royal sky demon. She closed her eyes, and the little white tiger's cute appearance appeared in her mind again. Azure blue eyes, fluffy semicircular ears, round little claws, soft and clean white fur. Mengqi clenched and relaxed her fingers. Woo! Stroking the little white tiger felt good for a moment. But it was really good to stroke. She hugged the blanket and rolled a few more times on the bed. It was rare for Mengqi to be unable to fall asleep. Whenever she closed her eyes, other than the little white tiger, she would see Yun Qingyan's deep eyes looking at her with a faint smile. What a sin! Mengqi rolled a few more times. She had committed such a heinous and rebellious act. She still hoped that Master would accept her as his disciple in this lifetime. It was probably the last bit of kindness that Yun Qingyan had shown by not throwing her into the Starfall Sea directly. In the end, Mengqi didn't even know when she fell asleep. When she woke up, the room was still a little dark, but there was still a faint light shining in through the window. Mengqi opened her eyes and looked at the muslin bed curtain above her in a daze. The memories of last night flooded her mind again. She sat up abruptly and quickly jumped off the bed. As she put on her shoes and walked out quickly, she used a simple spell to summon water and freshen up. Ah! Mengqi couldn't help but exclaim softly as soon as she opened the door. In the sky, the morning sun had already risen, and the soft rays of sunlight shone down. However, she could still see the twinkling stars in the sky. Although they were far from being as bright as at night, they could still be seen clearly, and their brilliance wasn't obscured by the sunlight at all. Mengqi stared blankly for a moment. So the Starfall Sea was this strange. The sky wasn't the usual sky blue of the 3 realms. Instead, it was a little like a large piece of clear light jade, similar to the color of the Star Lake in Starfall Valley. Looking at it like this, the entire sky seemed beautiful and a little strange. Yun Qingyan's door also opened with a creak. The white-robed man stood tall. "You're awake?" Qing Yanshenjian. Mengqi blushed when she saw him now. She lowered her head, not daring to meet his gaze. She murmured, "Morning." "Come with me," Yun Qingyan said, taking the lead to walk forward. Mengqi hurriedly followed. The two of them left the manor and walked to the other end of the great desolate island. Mengqi followed closely behind him and did not ask where they were going. The Starfall Sea looked even more charming during the day than at night. The sunlight shone on the surface of the sea as if it was sprinkling a handful of gold fragments. The tiny waves sparkled with golden light, no different from the lakes in the three realms. However, the reflections of the stars could still be seen in the sea. They walked for about half an hour, and arrived at the southernmost part of the great desolate island. This was a crescent-shaped promontory, and the waves were bigger than other places. A mountain stood on the promontory. There were no plants on the rugged mountain. It was bare and looked a little strange. "This is?" Meng Qi asked as he looked at Yin Qingyan. "You can find nether iron here," Yin Qingyan said. "Besides, Before he finished speaking, his gaze moved slightly as he looked up the mountain. Meng Qi followed his gaze and looked over. "There," she focused her gaze. "There seems to be someone there." Yin Qingyan's face is green, or she couldn't control herself at all when she saw the difficult and complicated diseases. "Oh, my eyes hurt yesterday, so I had to ask for leave. I've made everyone wait for a long time then. I found out today that I'm only 1 meter away from the season list. I'm excited. This is the first time I'm so close to the season list. Can my baby send me up there? Even if it's just for a day, I'll be satisfied. But this requires the support of everyone's comments. Little angels, please work hard and comment more, okay?" Chapter 102. At the foot of Cape Mountain in the southernmost part of the great desolate island. It was about the place where the waves of the fallen star sea were the strongest. The 5 spirits' primordial chi in the fallen star sea kept rising and slapping towards the cliff. Except for the lack of splashing water, the momentum sounded quite scary. The wind was also very strong, and Meng Qi's green robe was fluttering in the wind. Yin Qingyan beside her was also in a similar situation. Her sleeves were blown by the wind, and Meng Qi would be brushed from time to time. "It seems to be." Meng Qi tiptoed slightly and looked over. She could only see that there seemed to be a black figure on the cliff, but most of it was covered by the bare stones on the mountain, so she couldn't see the other party's specific appearance. "I'll go and take a look," Meng Qi said and quickened her pace. Yin Qingyan stopped and looked at Meng Qi quietly. The green-robed girl's figure was slender and agile, and she soon climbed halfway up the mountain. However, the black figure was on the other side. Meng Qi looked around, carefully held a stone on the side, and leaned to the side. The black figure lay quietly on the ground, motionless. Meng Qi could now see the other party's complete figure. It should be a woman in a black robe. Her hair was black, and she was wearing a hair accessory made of blood-colored coral beads. Even though she was dressed in a black robe, it could not hide her exquisite figure. She had a slender waist, and her long hair was scattered on her back, almost reaching her waist. "Qing Yanshenjian." Meng Qi turned her head and called out. "It's a female cultivator. She should have fainted." As she spoke, she carefully moved a few steps in that direction. Meng Qi saw a small platform beside the woman in black that could accommodate one person. Her figure flashed and stood on it. She leaned over and gently pressed 2 fingers on the side of the woman's neck. "She's still alive." Meng Qi withdrew her fingers and looked around awkwardly. The woman in black was completely lying on the cliff, motionless. Not far away, the 5 spirits' primordial chi in the fallen star sea was still stirring up waves, and then slamming heavily at the foot of the mountain. If not for the gentle slope of the mountain, the black-clothed woman would have fallen back into the starfall sea. Meng Qi did not dare to act rashly. She first took out a ribbon from her storage bag, and bent over to tie it around the woman's wrist. The other end of the ribbon was firmly held in her hand. She took a deep breath, bent down and picked up the woman in black, and rushed down the mountain in one breath. "Oh!" Meng Qi placed the woman in black on a flat ground at the foot of the mountain. She reached out to tidy up the girl's hair. Her waist-length hair was brushed aside, revealing a pale and petite face. The woman looked very young. She had delicate eyebrows, cherry lips, and a straight nose. Even though her lips were pale and her eyes were closed, she was still a rare beauty. Meng Qi tilted his head slightly and looked down from her pale face. She reached out and gently pinched the woman's chin, tilting her head to the side. Amidst her hair, he could see her small ears. There was a small black flame on the smooth and white skin behind her ear. Although the flame was very small, it seemed to be burning fiercely. Meng Qi subconsciously raised her head and looked at Yin Qingyan, who had already walked to her side. "Qing Yanshenjian, what is this?" It was not a mark left behind by an injury. It was a bit like a mark left on a person by some kind of spell. Fiendish cultivator. Yin Qingyan glanced at it, raised her eyebrows and said lightly, "Fiendish cultivator?" Meng Qi's expression was slightly cold. She did not have a good impression of the fiendish realm. Just the books she had read recorded many times when the fiendish realm invaded the 3,000 worlds. Every time they burned, killed, and plundered, the sects were often destroyed one by one. Just the medical cultivators alone, who knew how many sects had been destroyed by the fiendish cultivators. Meng Qi subconsciously retracted her finger. The woman in black was still lying quietly on the ground, unaware. Her face was too pale, and her lips were even a little bruised. Compared to the demon realm, which had a good relationship with the 3,000 worlds, and even had demon cultivators like Su Junmo, the fiendish realm seemed unfamiliar, mysterious, and cruel. Meng Qi bent her finger slightly. She just wanted to see what kind of injury the other party had suffered. She did not have to save her. She pursed her lips, formed a spell with her left hand, and pointed at the woman's forehead. The gentle light of the spell illuminated the woman's beautiful face, which was almost gorgeous. The other party's eyelashes were long and curly, making her small cheeks look even more exquisite. Meng Qi closed her eyes and focused on checking the other party's condition. Yin Qingyan looked at the girl in the green robe, who was kneeling on the ground with her eyes closed. He had already guessed that Meng Qi would do this. It was harder to let Meng Qi die than to take her life. A faint smile flashed across Yin Qingyan's eyes, and she turned to look to the side. The Starfall Sea had completely calmed down. The surface of the sea shone with golden light, and it was beautiful. But last night, it had probably been crazy enough to tear apart everything in the world. For this female cultivator to be able to come to the great desolate island, she should be a very strong combat concubine of the demon realm. Yin Qingyan's gaze swept indifferently across the black robe on the woman's body. The black robe was much more fitting than the cultivator robes of the 3,000 worlds, and it completely outlined the other party's slender figure. There were also dark red patterns embroidered on the sleeves, chest, and hem of the robe. Yin Qingyan glanced at the dark red patterns, and his gaze turned cold. His lips curled. The other party was quite daring. At the same time, Meng Qi also opened her eyes. "Are her injuries serious?" Yin Qingyan asked. "Her spiritual sea has been completely torn apart," Meng Qi said. "I have never seen such a shattered spiritual sea." Compared to her, the cracks in Ji Wujiang's spiritual sea were not even worth mentioning. This girl's spiritual sea had been completely shattered, and there was no more Ling energy left. If it wasn't for the fact that the fragments of the spiritual sea could still be seen, and the dim and lightless Niden that could be seen after Jindan, the black-robed female was no different from a normal person. What kind of terrifying power could tear the spirit sea into pieces like this? Meng Qi took back her hand and stood up. Also, she was able to survive even with her spiritual sea in such a state, so her Niden was complete. Usually, when the spiritual sea was shattered like this, the Niden would also be damaged. Qingyan's Henjun. She turned to look at Yin Qingyan. What grade is she? Meng Qi had very little contact with Emoshio, and knew very little about the Emo world. She only knew that they were cruel and bloodthirsty, but all of them were extremely powerful. Also, among the Emoshio, other than having inherited many formations like the Yao world, the strongest weapon cultivator was said to be in the Emo world. 5th grade. Equivalent to your severed spirit Xiuzha. Almost at the great perfection of the severed spirit, Yin Qingyan glanced and said, "Her spiritual sea is shattered, but her Niden is intact. However, without the nourishment of the endless Ling energy, it is slightly dim," Meng Qi murmured. She seemed to be talking to Yin Qingyan, but also seemed to be talking to herself. "I don't know what kind of power can damage the spiritual sea of a Xiuzha, who is almost at the great perfection of the severed spirit to such a state." 5 Spirit Primal Energy. Yin Qingyan's lips curled slightly. It can repair the cracks in the spiritual sea, but the 5 Spirit Primal Energy in the Starfall Sea can also cause the spiritual sea to shatter. Because it is too much and too strong, normal Xiuzha cannot withstand it. So that's how it is. Meng Qi nodded. This was easy to understand. Water could carry a boat, but it could also capsize it. Some spirit medicines were the same. Once the dosage was exceeded, they would turn from spirit medicines that could cure illnesses into poisonous medicines. Similarly, some seemingly poisonous medicines could also cure illnesses and save lives if the dosage was appropriate. Meng Qi looked at the black-clothed woman lying quietly on the ground. She looks quite young. I wonder if she has been to the Trichiliocosm, she murmured. The corners of Yin Qingyan's lips curled up slightly again. He did not reply. He just looked at Meng Qi quietly. The green-robed girl stood with her hands by her side. Her face was full of, I want to try. I want to cure her. I want to save her. Even her fingers, which were hanging by her side, would bend slightly from time to time. Meng Qi pursed his lips again and murmured, she looks very young, and she is also a demonic Xiuzha who is about to reach the great perfection of the severed spirit. She should have never been to the Trichiliocosm, right? After all, the barrier is obstructive. Unless there is an expert to help forcefully break through the barrier, it is very difficult for a severed spirit Xiuzha to cross the barrier of the three realms. Yin Qingyan, the demon realm. It seems that the demon realm has not invaded the Trichiliocosm on a large scale for several hundred years. Usually at most, fourth-grade demonic Xiuzha or demonic beasts quietly pass through the barrier and are quickly eliminated. Meng Qi continued dryly. Qingyan's Henjun. She turned her head and looked at Yin Qingyan eagerly. Is that so? The demonic Xiuzha's realm division is somewhat different from the Trichiliocosm. Yin Qingyan found it funny. He realized that he liked to see Meng Qi in a difficult position and eagerly trying to save someone. Yes, yes. Meng Qi finally got a response from him and nodded repeatedly. The experts among them not only need to raise their cultivation realm, but also need battle achievements. Yin Qingyan continued. The demon realm is actually fragmented and has never been unified. Under the Great Demon Realm, the 33 demon realms are divided into 5 major forces. The flames of war between them are constant, and from time to time, they would invade the Trichiliocosm and even the demon realm. He paused and looked at Meng Qi's pale face. A trace of amusement and pity flashed through his heart. Was it that uncomfortable? Was Meng Qi really that uncomfortable when she encountered an injured person, especially one with strange injuries that she could not treat? Azu. He barely hid the smile in his voice and continued. The 5 major forces divide the demon realm. The strongest force of each force is called the Great Demon Residence. Meng Qi nodded repeatedly again. She looked obedient and her eyes were full of anticipation. Yin Qingyan coughed lightly and almost raised his hand to rub Meng Qi's fluffy little head. Although the girl's soft hair was far from being as soft as their clan's fur, it should be very neat and easy to touch. Perhaps it would be like her body, with a faint, slightly bitter, but very elegant medicinal fragrance. Yin Qingyan turned his gaze away and did not look at Meng Qi's expectant eyes. He continued, the Great Demon Residence is often an ancient demonic Xiuzha family with a legacy. After tens of thousands of years of tempering, their combat power is extremely strong. And Yin Qingyan's gaze fell on the unconscious girl. The tattoo behind her ear means that she has a place in the Great Demon Residence. Meng Qi. Such female Xiuzha are called the demon realm's war concubines. They are powerhouses who have experienced countless battles. Every time the flames of war ignite, they will not leave and guard the master of the Great Demon Residence, who is also the master they swore allegiance to, Yin Qingyan said. So it's impossible for her to be a war concubine of the demon realm without blood on her hands. I just don't know if it's a demonic Xiuzha, a demon beast or... Yin Qingyan glanced at Meng Qi indifferently. The meaning of his words was self-evident. Meng Qi's face was full of disappointment. In fact, she had already guessed that since it was a demonic Xiuzha, it was an enemy of their Trichiliocosm. Although she swore that she would never leave them in the lurch, she would not save such an enemy who might kill her compatriots. I understand. Meng Qi responded in a low voice. Qingyan's Henjun had made it so clear that she could no longer deceive herself, and continued to find such a mess of excuses. Meng Qi's fingers that were hanging by her side curled slightly again. Meng Qi. Yin Qingyan's eyes were bright. You can save her. Meng Qi suddenly turned her head, her eyes bright. But her gaze quickly dimmed again. I'd better not. She pursed her lips and said in a low voice, Senior Lin Yan, who we met in the barrier of the great demon realm, was originally the strongest among our medical Xiuzha. Dong Zhen became a profound realm great doctor. In the ancient era, she really had the chance to become an earth realm great doctor, or even a heaven realm great doctor. Meng Qi said. But the demonic Xiuzha invaded, and the Xiuzha and ordinary citizens of the 6 cities and 8 towns were in danger. The cities were about to be destroyed, and the people were in a terrible situation. Senior Lin Yan voluntarily lost all of her cultivation, and dropped 2 major realms to save them. But it will be difficult for her to advance in her life. Meng Qi said in a low voice, "We medical Xiuzha will not save a poisonous snake that will bite when it wakes up. Her Ling Si is completely damaged. It will not be able to recover in a day." Yun Qingyan said, "Since you are going to forge the 5-spirit cauldron, you can use her to practice and help you forge the 5-spirit cauldron." His tone was calm. Even if her Ling Si is repaired, she will need at least 3 to 5 days to recover. You can kill her then. Meng Qi. Yun Qingyan said, "What do you think?" Meng Qi looked dazedly at him and did not speak. Yun Qingyan's lips curved slightly. "Also, aren't you forging the 5-spirit cauldron to repair other people's Ling Sis? 5-spirit primal qi is not an ordinary thing. Without anyone to practice with, you plan to try it on the person you want to save?" Meng Qi stilled and could not speak for a moment. Yun Qingyan's words were reasonable, but she felt a chill slowly rising from her back that she had never felt before when she was with him. Meng Qi's body could not help but tremble slightly. Since the black-clothed woman was a demon realm war concubine, and her hands were stained with blood, she had no intention of saving her. But the other party was a demonic Xiuzha. Even if she was an enemy, she had never thought that she could do such a thing. In Meng Qi's eyes, medical skills were medical skills. It was the great Tao of cultivation that she would firmly pursue for the rest of her life even if she died. Of course, she was also a Xiuzha. In order to protect herself and to save people, she would also do it. But Meng Qi looked down at the black-clothed woman lying on the ground in a daze. The other party's small face was pale. Just by looking at her appearance, she was not much older than her. Even if she deserved to die, Meng Qi could not do that. Meng Qi took a deep breath. For the first time, after Yin Qingyan spoke, she did not obediently agree with a yes. Qing Yan's Henjun. She looked up. Her clear eyes seemed to be able to look straight into Yin Qingyan's heart. "I can't do this." Meng Qi's tone was firm. "Saving people is saving people. Hurting people is hurting people. In order to protect myself or save people, it's okay to hurt people. But I can't do this." She frowned slightly. For a moment, she felt that she could not explain clearly. "I can't do such a thing. I can't confuse saving people with hurting people. That is not in line with my great Tao." After Meng Qi finished speaking, she cupped her hands towards Yin Qingyan. "Thank you for your guidance, Qing Yan's Henjun. Please forgive me for not being able to comply." "Really?" Yin Qingyan raised her eyebrows, her gaze languid. "Do you know that a demon realm war concubine, who is about to reach the consummation of the spirit-severing stage coincidentally has her spiritual sea completely damaged? If you use her spiritual sea to refine your 5-spirit cauldron, what you get in the end will be a very powerful life-bonded magic treasure. Or in the next few hundred years, no one in the medical cultivation world can defeat you." "No." Meng Qi shook her head firmly. "No matter how powerful the 5-spirit cauldron is, it can't become my life-bonded magic treasure. The life-bonded magic treasure of the cultivators in the 3,000 worlds needed to be connected to the cultivator's mind." Meng Qi felt uncomfortable just imagining herself using this method to refine the 5-spirit cauldron. Every strand of her hair was rejecting it. Not to mention the life-bonded magic treasure. She even suspected that if she really did this, her Tao heart would be damaged. From then on, it would be difficult for her medical cultivation to improve. "Huh." Yin Qingyan chuckled. "Meng Qi, what about the friend you want to save by refining the 5-spirit cauldron? Aren't you going to save her?" Meng Qi looked up and glanced at him in a daze. Yin Qingyan reminded her. If the other party really needed her, she would definitely save them. But she couldn't do that. Otherwise, she wouldn't be the only one who would be implicated. She might even affect the other party. I have to save her. Meng Qi's tone was firm. But I can't do that. Click. A light sound was heard. Just after Meng Qi said this, a soft sound suddenly came from her spiritual sea. Meng Qi was a little surprised, but Yin Qingyan was still here, so she didn't immediately investigate what had happened. Meng Qi. Oh Meng Qi. Yin Qingyan flicked his sleeves and stood up. The way he looked at Meng Qi was much warmer than before. Yes, Meng Qi answered respectfully. You can save her, he repeated. But, as I said just now, the demon world is fragmented. It has never been unified for tens of thousands of years. Yin Qingyan waved his hand, indicating for her to stop talking. He put his hands behind his back and turned to look at the Starfall Sea. Among the 5 major forces, some of the masters of the great demon residents are cruel and bloodthirsty. They are the ones who sent people to invade the 3 realms 9 out of 10 times. But there is also one force, Yin Qingyan said, that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years and occupies the 5 demon heavens of the 33 heavens of the demon world. Meng Qi quickly calculated. It didn't seem bad. This great demon residence is a little special. It is said that the first master was the child of a demon cultivator and a human cultivator after they fell in love. Later on, the 3 realms were divided. For some reason, the child went to the demon world and fell in love with a demon cultivator and had descendants. Meng Qi. It sounded a little complicated. That's why the great demon residence has always been very close to the 3 realms and the demon world. Yin Qingyan said, not only has it never invaded the 2 realms, but it has also helped a lot, treating and stopping a lot of killings. Meng Qi nodded. She had always believed that there was no such thing as an absolutely bad clan. As a red fox, Xikongxing was very good. As a demon cultivator, there were also bad guys like Xikongyan. There would also be she looked up at Yin Qingyan. There would also be people like Qin Yan's Henjun, the best person in the 3 realms. Meng Qi's face heated up. She actually doubted Qin Yan's Henjun just now. Seriously, even if she thought with her feet, she knew that he definitely didn't think that way. He was definitely just testing her. She adjusted her expression and became more serious. Yin Qingyan glanced at her and continued. This great demon residence is marked by black flames. He raised the corners of his lips and smiled sarcastically. The demon world advocates red, which is the color of blood. They think that that is the purest color. The other 4 great demon residences are marked by red, but they think that the master of this great demon residence has an impure bloodline and is a bastard from the demon world. So they don't allow them to use red. So they were forced to use black? Meng Qi asked. Not really. Yin Qingyan said lightly. The master of the great demon residence who chose black as his clan's emblem once said that black and red didn't matter. If one's Dao heart is firm, the great Dao will naturally be in front. Meng Qi was stunned, and the blood in her chest seemed to be ignited. She looked into the distance. The Starfall Sea was vast and boundless. She thought back to the time when the previous master of the great demon residence was surrounded by strong enemies. Even though he was ostracized and isolated by his own clan, and was ordered not to use red by those who were clearly of the same clan, he shouldn't have cared at all. He should have been upright and confident, talking and laughing with vigor. Meng Qi's eyes flashed. Such a person really made people yearn for him. So the tattoo behind her ear is a black flame. She should be their war concubine. Yin Qingyan said. She can be saved. Yes. Meng Qi nodded heavily. Save her. She was so elated that she forgot that she was still in the Starfall Sea. Meng Qi bent down, made a hand seal with her fingers, and gently tapped the black-clothed woman's forehead. Just now, she had only probed the woman's spirit sea and found that her spirit chi was completely gone. Now that she looked more carefully, she found that not only was the woman's spirit sea shattered, but her internal organs also seemed to be injured. Meng Qi withdrew her hand and frowned. She seemed to have been injured by someone, and she should have been injured before falling into the Starfall Sea. Otherwise, with her spirit sea shattered like this, such a serious injury should have taken her life. She took out a small porcelain bottle from her storage bag. There were 2 Ninyang pills inside, which were very effective for internal injuries. And this was the version that Meng Qi sealed with the Ninyang pills. She reached out and pinched open the woman's mouth, and stuffed the 2 Ninyang pills into her mouth. Yin Qingyan stood to the side and watched Meng Qi busy herself. The green-robed girl's expression was calm, and her elegant eyes were actually very delicate. The sunlight gilded her long eyelashes with a faint layer of soft light. Every time she was serious, perhaps even Meng Qi herself didn't notice, but there would always be 2 small dimples at the corners of her lips. Yin Qingyan's indifferent gaze swept over the unconscious demon realm battle concubine. The other party's appearance was gorgeous and could be said to be peerless. In fact, Meng Qi didn't lose to her, but she wasn't as dazzling. But the orchids in the mountains were also beautiful and otherworldly, enough to intoxicate people. Qing Yan's Hinjun. Meng Qi simply treated the black-clothed woman's injuries. The rest couldn't be healed in a short time. Now, it seemed that she really had to refine the 5-spirit cauldron. Meng Qi stood up, turned to look at Yun Qingyan and asked, "By the way, what's the name of the Great Devil Residence's master you mentioned just now?" Yun Qingyan looked at her deeply and said indifferently, "The master of the Great Devil Residence's surname is Ji." Chapter 103. Ji. Meng Qi stilled. Yes. Yun Qingyan glanced at her, and then at the unconscious female demonic Xiao. Meng Qi's Dan medicine took effect quickly. He remembered that it was the Dan recipe that Xue Qingxian of the Xue family had given her. "Go get the nether iron now," Yun Qingyan said. "Yes." Meng Qi nodded and her gaze swept across the female's face. Her spirit sea had been shattered, but her life was not in danger for now. There was no need to rush. Also, if she really wanted to completely repair the other's spirit sea, she probably had to forge the 5-spirit cauldron first. Meng Qi did not continue to ask. Even though she had the same surname as Ji Wujiang, there were so many people with the surname Ji in the world. Hadn't she met a Xiuzha called Ji Wenyuan before? She quickly threw this thought to the back of her mind, and turned to look at the mountain in front of her. The nether iron should be in the belly of the mountain. Yin Qingyan walked towards the mountain. In the sea of fallen stars, the 5-spirit primal energies were used as knives and brushes. After countless years, they carved the rocks on the cliffs. Yin Qingyan was already standing in front of the mountain. He raised his head slightly and looked at the bare little mountain. Meng Qi stood next to him, shoulder to shoulder. Yin Qingyan glanced at her, and then turned to look forward. He looked at the mountain that was not very tall and said to Meng Qi, "Some formations are driven by spirit energy. They do not have to be drawn on the ground." Meng Qi stilled. Before she could think more, Yin Qingyan had already moved. He raised his right hand, and his slender fingers casually moved in the air. Wherever Yin Qingyan's fingers passed, faint white light was left. His movements were fast, but not especially fast. At least, Meng Qi could see clearly. It was as though he was deliberately moving at full speed, so she could see clearly. However, it was not slow at all. In the blink of an eye, a faint, complete formation was left in the air. This was a bit like the experts of the sword faction. After they returned to their original state, no matter how fast they attacked, they could still easily see the traces of each sword. However, no matter how clearly they saw it, they could not dodge it. Yin Qingyan casually flicked out a few spirit stones. Meng Qi. Mystic Spirit Stone. She herself had used the Xian Spirit Stone in the array a few times, but she had been fighting for her life, so she couldn't care less at the crucial moment. Normally, it was already quite extravagant to use 7th and 8th ranks. The formation that was flashing with a faint white light in the air was suddenly activated by the spirit stones, and it shone brightly. Yin Qingyan raised her finger, and a white light shot towards the small mountain as fast as lightning. The other party wanted to before Meng Qi could finish his thought. There was a loud bang. Rubble flew into the air, and more than half of the hill was blown up. She felt something tighten around her waist. Yin Qingyan's sleeves were around her waist, protecting her as they retreated. So Qing Yan's Henjun wanted to blow up the hill. Yin Qingyan put Meng Qi down, took a step forward, and half covered her body. Meng Qi tilted her head slightly and looked forward from behind him. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The originally rugged hill was blown into countless stones and tumbled chaotically into the Starfall Sea. The 5 spirits' primordial qi seemed to be in a mess in an instant, But soon, those huge stones were completely swallowed up, and the starfall sea returned to calm. Meng-Chi couldn't help but be speechless. Her eyesight was quite good. After those stones tumbled into the sea, they didn't sink to the bottom at all. Instead, they were completely swallowed up by the 5 spirits' primordial qi in an instant, and probably became a part of the starfall sea's 5 spirits' primordial qi. Meng-Chi swallowed her saliva. She had thought that it was quite good to have so much 5 spirits' primordial qi. It seemed that everything in the world was as bad as not enough. No wonder Qing Yan's Henjun said just now that too much 5 spirits' primordial qi is no longer used to treat illnesses, but is enough to tear apart the spiritual sea of a spirit-severing stage cultivator. She looked up at Yun Qingyan and murmured, "These 5 spirits' primordial qi are really powerful when gathered together." Yun Qingyan nodded slightly and walked forward again. The whole hill was almost completely flattened by him. Meng-Chi followed him and looked left and right. Qing Yan's Henjun was really powerful. Although she had always known that he was very powerful, she still felt amazed every time she saw him. Just like that, he flattened a mountain as if it was nothing. It was really too powerful. At the foot of the completely flattened hill, countless black stones with a metallic luster were revealed. Meng-Chi walked to the black stones and saw them clearly. Those stones were originally brown, but each stone was inlaid with many black crystals about the size of a thumb, with sharp edges and corners. "Is this nether iron?" "Yes," Yun Qingyan said. "This should be enough for you." "All right." Meng-Chi took out a medicine knife from her storage pouch without thinking. The silver medicine knife looked thin, but was actually very tough and sharp. "Try the silver moon sword diagram," Yun Qingyan ordered coolly. "All right." Meng-Chi obeyed. When she swung the knife, she used the moves and spells of the silver moon sword diagram. As expected, wherever her medicine knife passed, the stones inlaid with nether iron were dug up whole. It is useless to use it to defend against enemies, but it can be used for mining. Yun Qingyan's tone was cool. "Meng-Chi, you know formations. You don't need to learn sword moves or offensive spells to protect yourself. The formations are enough for you." "Okay." Meng-Chi dug up all the nether iron that she could see. She happily put all the nether iron into her storage pouch. After putting it away, she remembered and hurriedly said, "Qing Yan's Henjun, I will clean up all the nether iron and send it to you." "I have no use for it," Yun Qingyan said. "You can keep it to refine the 5 spirit cauldron." "Thank you, Qing Yan's Henjun." Meng-Chi bowed obediently. The 5 spirit cauldron did not require all the materials. It could only be used after it was completely refined. After refining the initial small cauldron, every material added could directly raise the level of the cauldron by a large realm. If all 5 kinds of natural treasures were found, the 5 spirit cauldron would not only become a 6th level natal magic treasure. Like its name, it could also convert the 5 elements of pills, and even directly refine the herbs into the 5 spirit primordial qi. At that time, it could be used to repair the spirit sea. Of course, if it was used to refine medicine, it had its own uses. A natal magic treasure could connect with the mind of a cultivator, just like the sword spirit of a sword xiao. In the future, Meng-Chi would be able to better control the heat, and even all the minute changes in the process of refining the herbs, if she used it to refine medicine. This way, the success rate would be higher and the effect of the medicine would be greatly improved. Meng-Chi exhaled and couldn't help but look at the nether iron in her storage pouch. Her luck was really good. She looked up at Yun Qingyan. Of course, when she was with Yun Qingyan, her luck was always good. Meng-Chi couldn't help but smile. "Let's go back, Qing Yan's Henjun." As she spoke, she quickly walked to the still unconscious Mo-Jia battle concubine, and bent down to pick her up. Of course, Meng-Chi could not let Yun Qingyan do this kind of thing. Not to mention that she originally wanted to save the woman in black. Even if Yun Qingyan wanted her, it was natural for the disciple to serve the master. Meng-Chi's hands were very steady. The tall and slender woman in black wasn't heavy either. She carefully held her neck and knees and held her in her arms. The woman in black should be slightly taller than her. Yun Qingyan glanced at the two of them. The slender girl was holding another girl who was slightly taller than her, and she looked as if it was natural for her to do so. Meng Qi's careful appearance made it seem like she was holding a treasure that she had to carefully protect. Qingyan's Henjun? Meng Qi tilted her head slightly and looked at Yin Qingyan curiously. You're holding her like this? Yin Qingyan glanced at her. Meng Qi looked down at the black-clothed girl in her arms. Oh, she's not heavy. Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi smiled again and said with some rare pride. I've already formed my gold core. It's no problem for me to hold a girl like this. As soon as she said that, her face turned red. She seemed to be deliberately showing off, trying to prove that she wasn't that weak. She wondered if Yin Qingyan would find out about her little scheme. Meng Qi quietly and quickly glanced at Yin Qingyan's face from the corner of her eyes. She didn't dare to look at her anymore. She turned around and strode back the way they came with the woman in black in her arms. Let's go back quickly, Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi walked quickly, but her hands holding the woman in black were still very steady. Although the woman's life wasn't in danger for the time being, she was still unconscious. But after all, she was so seriously injured that her spiritual sea was completely shattered. Meng Qi still didn't want her to be injured a second time. With a soft sound, Meng Qi hadn't taken a few steps when a dark green shadow suddenly appeared beside her. The shadow twisted twice and turned into a tall and strong figure. The figure walked towards Meng Qi and stretched out his hands. Give her to him. Yin Qingyan ordered faintly. Yes, Meng Qi certainly wouldn't disobey. And she also believed that Yin Qingyan wouldn't do anything to hurt the woman. She carefully handed the woman in black to the shadow, and the figure immediately walked forward with her steadily in his arms. The shadow seemed to walk without needing to walk, and it looked more stable. Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi praised sincerely. You're so thoughtful. It's much more stable than me carrying her myself. The great desolate island wasn't big, so Meng Qi and Yin Qingyan soon returned to the manor where they rested last night. The figure directly carried the woman in black into Meng Qi's room and put her on the bed. Meng Qi quickly stepped forward to help. She supported the woman's head and gently placed it on the pillow so that the woman could lie more comfortably. When she turned around, the figure had already disappeared, and Yin Qingyan had also returned to his own room. Meng Qi didn't care. She reached out and pressed the woman's wrist. The 9 yang pills began to take effect, and the woman in black's pulse beat more vigorously than before. Meng Qi casually made a gesture and summoned a stream of clear water to wash her cheeks. She reached out and tucked the woman in black's hair behind her ears, revealing her face that was as beautiful as Xing's. The woman in black was probably injured, and then her spiritual sea was torn apart by the 5 spirits' primordial qi in the Starfall Sea. She then struggled to climb to the great desolate island. When Meng Qi carried her down from the mountain, there was a lot of fine dust on the woman's face. Now that she was clean, her deep facial features looked even more exquisite. Probably because of the effect of the pill, there was a touch of blood on her originally pale lips. Meng Qi pinched her chin and made her turn slightly to the side. She looked at the tattoo of a black flame behind her ear. The Devil World, the Great Devil Mansion, and the 33 Heavens of the Devil World. The Devil World's war concubine, the master of the Great Devil Mansion. These words that were originally very unfamiliar to her flashed through her mind one by one. Meng Qi let go and pulled the blanket over the woman. She also used a spell to clean the other party's clothes. This might make her more comfortable. She reached out and pressed on the other party's forehead. In addition to her spiritual sea being completely broken, the woman's internal injuries were also quite serious. There seemed to be many small wounds on her internal organs. Fortunately, the foundation of a perfected spirit-severing cultivator was strong enough. If it was an ordinary person, or even a foundation-building or qi-refining cultivator, they would probably have died from excessive blood loss. Meng Qi thought for a moment, and took out the last 9 yang pills from her storage bag. She pinched open the woman's mouth and stuffed the 9 yang pills into her mouth. She also jumped onto the bed and sat cross-legged on the inside. Her hands flashed with light, and she pointed the 9 yang pills at the other party. Meng Qi persisted until her spiritual energy was used up. Then she retracted her hand and slowly opened her eyes. She exhaled and lowered her head to look at the woman. The woman who had been unconscious for a long time. Her fingers on her side moved slightly. She suddenly moaned in a low voice. Her thick and slightly curly eyelashes trembled slightly, and she slowly opened her eyes. Whether it was the 3,000 worlds or the demon realm, there was never a lack of beautiful women. Meng-Chi could be considered to have seen a lot of beautiful women. When she saved this black-clothed woman earlier, she knew that the other party's facial features were exquisite and bright. She must be a beautiful woman. Unexpectedly, when the woman opened her eyes at this time, those eyes that were like the dew of morning petals still stunned Meng-Chi. The black-clothed woman moaned softly again, and her eyes opened even wider. Her eyelashes were thick and slightly curly, and her facial features were deeper than the cultivators of the 3,000 worlds. At this time, she opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear, like a newborn elk, with a bit of ignorance and confusion, which made her even more lovable. "You're awake?" Meng-Chi withdrew her gaze from the other party's face, and reached out to press her wrist that was as white as jade. Her pulse was steadier and stronger than before. If it was a normal person, their life would be saved. But the other party was a cultivator after all. Losing her spiritual ocean. Living was probably worse than death. You are? The black-clothed woman blinked, her gaze falling on Meng-Chi's face. Her body moved, and she struggled to sit up. But her body had just moved, and she lay back on the bed powerlessly. "Who are you?" She took a deep breath, and her gaze swept the entire room. "Where am I? Don't you know?" Meng-Chi rested his chin on one hand and looked at her. "Where you came from, where you're going. Don't you remember? Fallen Star Sea." The black-clothed woman struggled to sit up again. However, the feeling of weakness that she was completely unaccustomed to was still dominating her body. Her body had just moved, and she lay back on the bed helplessly. "This is the Fallen Star Sea." She seemed to be inexplicably shocked. I am. Your spiritual ocean was completely torn apart by the Fallen Star Sea," Meng-Chi said. What?" The black-clothed woman's face, which had finally regained some color, instantly turned pale. Even paler than before. "My spiritual ocean. In the end, she was a cultivator who was about to reach the great perfection of the spirit-severing stage. So she still had her composure. After a moment of panic, the black-clothed woman closed her eyes. In an instant, she opened her eyes again. Shock, panic, helplessness, and even faintly fear and despair appeared on her face at the same time. "My spiritual ocean." The woman looked at Meng-Chi. Without any warning, tears suddenly fell from her eyes. Sparkling and translucent tears trickled down, instantly drenching his chest. "No, She reached out to desperately wipe her tears. "I shouldn't cry." "Why?" Meng-Chi didn't understand. "Can't you cry when you're sad?" "Shouldn't cry." She took a deep breath, and desperately wiped away the tears on her face, trying to stop herself from crying. The black-clothed woman closed her eyes again. When she opened them again, all of the panic, helplessness, and fear from before had disappeared from her face. She took a deep breath, supported herself on the bed, and gritted her teeth to try to sit up. Meng-Chi hurriedly reached out to help her. "Many thanks, Mississippi," she nodded towards Meng-Chi. When she had just woken up, her spiritual ocean had been completely shattered, her Ling energy was gone, and her inner core was dim. The black-clothed woman had instantly lost her composure, but now she had clearly calmed down. "You're welcome." Meng-Chi helped her sit up. She also sat cross-legged on the bed. After entering Jindan, even though her Ling energy had been used up, there would be an endless flow of Ling energy coming out of the inner core, and the dried-up spiritual ocean would slowly start to have new Ling energy. However, the speed was still too slow. Meng-Chi had already stuffed a northern dark pill into his mouth. If the black-clothed woman's spiritual ocean hadn't been completely shattered, with her cultivation, she shouldn't have been in such a sorry state. "Miss, did you save me?" The black-clothed woman barely managed to sit up. She looked up at Meng-Chi. In the blink of an eye, even the blankness and helplessness in her eyes disappeared. The black-clothed woman's expression also became calm. She looked coldly at Meng-Chi. "I saw you at the Fallen Star Seaside," Meng-Chi said. "You seem to have been injured before you fell here. You were unconscious at the time and collapsed by the seaside." "Yes." The woman nodded. I was chased by the enemy and was already injured before I fell here. She paused. Even though she was weak and could barely sit up, she still nodded towards Meng-Chi. Thank you for saving my life, Mississippi. In the future, I will definitely. The black-clothed woman was suddenly speechless. Her spiritual ocean was damaged, but the elegant and beautiful girl in front of her could come and go freely in a dangerous place like the fallen star sea. She even saved her so easily. It seemed a bit shameless for her to say that she would definitely repay her in the future. Meng-Chi tilted his head slightly and looked at the black-clothed woman. The black-clothed woman closed her eyes again. My spiritual ocean has been destroyed. I'm afraid I can't repay Mrs. Kindness in this life. I can only repay you for saving my life. Chongxiang Chinese Network. Are you a battle concubine of the Great Devil Residence's Ji family? Meng-Chi asked. You. A strange light flashed through the black-clothed woman's eyes. How did you? She suddenly closed her mouth and didn't continue. Obviously, she didn't want to expose her secret. Can't you say it? Meng-Chi didn't force her. She was just curious about the Devil Realm. She was also curious about the Great Devil Residence's master, who had a good relationship with the 3,000 worlds and the Demon Realm. She didn't have the habit of forcing people to do things they didn't want to do after saving them. Then what's your name? Can you tell me? Meng-Chi smiled at her and explained. Because you may be staying here for a long time. It's easier to call you by a name. Stay here for a long time? The woman stared blankly at Meng-Chi. But it's not easy to repair your spiritual sea. Meng-Chi said. With my current ability, I can't do it for the time being. Repair spiritual sea? The black-clothed woman repeated Meng-Chi's words in a daze. She knew every single word, but why was it so difficult to understand when they were put together? The black-clothed woman suddenly raised her head and stared at Meng-Chi in disbelief. Spiritual sea can be repaired? Her voice was slightly hoarse. Because of her excitement, her voice was so dry that she couldn't speak. But my spiritual sea has already shattered into pieces. There's no spiritual energy left, and my inner core is obscure. I can't guarantee it, but I can try. Meng-Chi said. Thank you, miss. The black-clothed woman's lips trembled slightly, and her eyes became slightly hot. She had a firm mind and had experienced countless storms. Even if a mountain collapsed in front of her, her expression wouldn't change. But now that she had lost all her spiritual energy, her mind was no longer as steady. Although she knew that hope was slim, she still saw a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Even if it was just a glimmer of hope, she had to desperately grasp it. My name is Yi Wu. The black-clothed woman Yi Wu said. I haven't asked for Mrs. name. Meng-Chi said. She got off the bed and said, I'll do my best. You can stay here for now. Miss Meng-Chi, Yi Wu asked, where is this? I can only tell you that we're still in the Starfall Sea, Meng-Chi said. I'll call you Yi Wu, and you can call me Meng-Chi. There's no need to be so polite. Okay, Meng-Chi. Yi Wu complied. Meng-Chi's heart skipped a beat. Did she forget something? She remembered now. She still had to go to heaven beyond heaven. Previously, she had promised Si Kongxing and the others that no matter what happened, she would meet them at heaven beyond heaven tower today. Meng-Chi hurriedly looked left and right. Yi Wu was so badly injured that he definitely couldn't let her go out. Rest well, Meng-Chi said to her. I have something to do. After she finished speaking, she hurriedly turned around and walked out of the room. After Meng-Chi and Yin Qingyan brought Yi Wu back, he went back to his room. There were other rooms in the manor, but Yin Qingyan didn't say that she could use them, so Meng-Chi didn't dare to barge in. She thought for a moment, then knocked on the door across from hers. As soon as he knocked on the door opened without any wind blowing. Come in. Yin Qingyan's voice came from inside the room. Meng-Chi hurriedly went in. The white-robed man was sitting on the bed with one hand pointing to the sky, and the other pointing to the ground. Faint starlight flowed from heaven and earth into his body, making him look extremely mysterious. Meng-Chi. Yin Qingyan opened his eyes. The starlight didn't stop, and it seemed like there were stars twinkling in his eyes. The Big Dipper's shadow floated up and down. Is he cultivating? Meng-Chi stared at him in a daze. What's the matter? Yin Qingyan slowly closed his eyes and asked again. Qingyan's Henjun. Meng Qi hurriedly closed the door and said, Yi Wu, the injured demon realm battleship is resting in my room. Can I use another room? She didn't hide it from Yin Qingyan and said directly, I want to go to outer heaven. Oh. Yin Qingyan opened his eyes slightly. Right here. Meng Qi. Okay. She chose the spot furthest away from Yin Qingyan and took out the jade slip for outer heaven. Although it was unlikely that Yin Qingyan would encounter any problems here, and she might not be able to help much, it was good that she wasn't noisy and was closer to him. Meng Qi held the jade slip and slowly closed her eyes. Light flashed before her eyes, and she was already standing outside outer heaven city. In the room, Yin Qingyan snorted coldly, and the starlight around him dissipated. He got up and slowly walked to Meng Qi's side. Going to outer heaven again. Why was he in such a hurry? Who was he going to see? Chu Tianfeng? Qin Xiuma. Chapter 104. Meng Qi did not go directly to heaven's beyond heaven tower. She had another purpose for going there. Refining the 5-spirit cauldron required 5 kinds of natural treasures. Apart from nether iron and Brahma sand, which could be found in the Starfall Sea, the remaining blazing feather, chaos vine, and sky dragon crystal were all rare items that could only be found in the demon realm or the devil realm. Meng Qi had once bought the blazing feather at the heaven-class auction house in heavens beyond heaven. Therefore, she planned to try her luck first to see if she could buy these 3 things here. The teleportation formation instantly sent her to the floating island of the heaven-class auction house. The auction here was sometimes only held once a month. When there were special and extremely rare items, another auction would be held. At this time, the floating island was quiet. Meng Qi walked all the way to the auction house, but she did not meet a single cultivator. Outside the auction house, it was also empty. Only a staff member of the heaven-class auction house was guarding there. When the staff member saw Meng Qi, he was obviously stunned, but he quickly greeted her with a smile. Fellow Taoist, is there something you need? Yes. Meng Qi nodded. Fellow Taoist, when will the heaven-class auction house be next? Can you know in advance if there is something I need in the auction? This. The staff member muttered and looked at her up and down again. Meng Qi looked very young. She was dressed in a green robe, and her figure was slender and even slightly thin. Her elegant little face made her look like she was only 17 or 18 years old. She looked exactly like a young girl. However, since she could walk here without anyone stopping her, her identity was definitely not ordinary. The staff member quickly smiled at Meng Qi again. Of course. As he spoke, he took out a bamboo slip and said, Fellow Taoist, you might as well leave your things here. If the 3 auction houses have items for auction, they will inform you. Okay. Meng Qi took the bamboo slip and left the blazing feather, sky dragon crystal, and chaos vine behind. She thought for a moment, and wrote down the spirit-devouring grass and nightless fruit needed to refine the starlight on the bamboo slip. Meng Qi returned the bamboo slip to the staff member and smiled. Thank you, fellow Taoist. No problem. The staff member smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, do you know? This requires a certain amount of spiritual points. Huh. Meng Qi really did not know. Xue Jinwen had told her that there were many uses for spiritual points, but she did not expect them to be so useful. Meng Qi felt a little regretful. If she had known that she could use spiritual points to do such a thing, she would have come earlier. It's like this. The man explained. Each item costs 5 spirit points. If there is really an item to be auctioned, or if the realm beyond heaven has this item for sale, we will inform you. Whether you need it or not, you will have to pay an additional 3 spirit points. Meng Qi. Is that so? Yes. That person smiled faintly. Usually, only when the sect urgently needs something, would people use this method to make an appointment. He paused for a moment and said, Fellow Taoist, you might as well leave behind the things you urgently need. If the rest of the rank 5 are not in a hurry, there is no harm in waiting slowly. The day before the major auctions, the list of auction items will be made public to inform those who are qualified to participate in the auction. The man saw that Meng Qi had left a total of 5 items, which would cost 25 spirit points. She was young. Even if she was qualified to enter the heaven-class auction house, it was most likely because she came from a large sect and was an elite disciple that the sect focused on cultivating. In many sects, only the sect master or elders were qualified to use spiritual points. Individuals had very few of them. Thank you for your guidance. Mengqi saluted him. Then what is it that fellow Taoist needs urgently? That person asked politely. Let's record all 5 items, Mengqi said. As she spoke, she reached out and clasped the bamboo slip, leaving her divine sense mark. A white light flashed on the bamboo slip, and the cultivator of the heaven-class auction house raised his eyebrows. This time, he was really surprised. It was not a big deal to be qualified to enter the heaven-class auction house, but the girl in front of him actually had so many spirit points to pay, and she looked like she did not care. This was really surprising. The cultivator could not help but look up and size up Mengqi again. Green robe, black hair, elegant face and clear eyes, looking very comfortable. Thank you for your hard work, Dao friend. Mengqi smiled at him again. She turned and walked towards the teleportation array, and went straight from there to the Heavens Beyond Heaven building. The welcoming cultivator of the Heavens Beyond Heaven building still had an impression of her, and politely led her to the box they had used before. Mengqi was the first to arrive. Before she could order anything to eat, someone had already served her tea and snacks. The pink plum blossom-shaped pastries looked very delicate and cute. In addition, there were 3 plates of candies of different shapes, and 2 fresh and juicy spirit fruits. The waiter brought tea and snacks, and quickly left the box, and considerately closed the box door for her. Mengqi waited for a while, and 3 knocks came from the box door. Then the door opened and Xing rushed in first. Mengqi. She jumped to Mengqi's side and immediately grabbed her shoulder to size her up for a while. After confirming that her good friend was intact, and not even a strand of hair was missing, Xing then let go of her hand and sat down. She did not stand on ceremony. She first stuffed a plum blossom cake into her mouth and swallowed it quickly, and then said, I thought of a way to ask my father to find out. Just a month and a half ago, the 3 entrances of the demon realm's fallen star sea were guarded by the heavenly demon royal family's elite subordinates. Mengqi asked, what happened? Because of the demon lord token. When Xing said this, she knew that no one in the Heavens Beyond Heaven building's box could eavesdrop on her, but she still lowered her voice and said softly, the demon lord token is about to reappear. She paused and lowered her voice even more. 3 months ago, there were rumors in the demon realm that the demon lord was seriously injured and fell into the fallen star sea. No one knows if he is dead or alive, and most likely he has already died in the fallen star sea. Therefore, the demon lord token will reappear in the fallen star sea. In addition, the demon lord's personal guards are surrounded in the 7th heaven, and have been unable to break out. At first, there were many people who did not believe such a strange rumor, but slowly, the rumors became more and more intense. Not only the demon lord, but even his subordinates rarely appear in the demon realm. Slowly, everyone began to doubt it. Xing looked at Mengqi's puzzled face and quickly explained, our demon realm is not so united and obedient. Although the demon lord token is held by the demon lord token, the demon lord token is only useful when the survival of the demon realm is threatened, or when there is a major event that concerns the relationship between the 3 realms. Usually it can't command the entire demon realm. Mengqi nodded thoughtfully. It's just that the current demon lord is perfected Lord White Tiger of the heavenly demon White Tiger clan. Mengqi's heart skipped a beat. She had always been careful. In fact, from the previous clues, she had more or less guessed Yin Qingyan's identity. But when she really heard the words perfected Lord White Tiger, her cheeks still blushed and her face became hot. Mengqi. Xing was puzzled. Why are you blushing? No, nothing. Mengqi quickly shook his head. It's a little stuffy here. Xing looked around. Was it stuffy? She didn't think so. But she was straightforward and didn't take it to heart. She continued. He's really powerful. 10 years ago, the demon lord token was also snatched by him, because he was strong enough to look down on the entire demon realm. Xing suddenly asked, By the way, Meng-Chi, you know the Demon Lord, right? Huh? Meng-Chi was stunned. I've never been to the Demon Realm. But you know the 4 extreme arrays and can even activate the killing array. Xing suddenly shuddered when she said this. She couldn't help but think that Meng-Chi was like the god of death that day. The green-robed girl's slender hands were like a king looking down on the world. Yes. Meng-Chi answered vaguely. He didn't want to lie to Xing. This matter was related to Yun Qingyan. If he didn't take the initiative to say it, Meng-Chi would never reveal his secret. Xing's shoulders trembled a few times before she continued. That's not a member of the heavenly demon White Tiger clan. No. She shook her head and said, as far as I know, only perfected Lord White Tiger can use that array. Meng-Chi. She really didn't know anything. Xing continued. Your Excellency's whereabouts are unknown and you haven't appeared for several months. Those royal heavenly demons who have ambitions for the position of demon monarch have become bolder. Not only have they surrounded your Excellency's personal guards in the 7th heaven, but they have also blocked all the entrances to the fallen star sea from the demon realm. So Meng-Chi. She grabbed Meng-Chi's hand. I've asked Father. He said that it's harder than ascending to heaven to enter, or leave the fallen star sea from the demon realm now, because it requires the consent of the other 3 royal heavenly demon clan leaders besides the White Tiger clan. I understand. Meng-Chi nodded. She was actually not in a hurry to leave the fallen star sea now, but Xing had gone to great lengths for her, and even told her these secrets of the demon realm. Meng-Chi was still very grateful. Thank you, Xing. But now Before she finished speaking, the door of the private room opened again. This time, Su Junmo, Chu Tianfeng, and the others walked in together. Xue Jinwen was the last to walk. When she saw Meng-Chi, she nodded slightly at her and smiled reassuringly. Meng-Chi. Su Junmo sat down in front of Meng-Chi with a serious expression. We've decided to form an elite team and break into the fallen star sea from the Western Realm's entrance. Ha! Before Meng-Chi could say anything, Xing's eyes lit up. When? I want to join too. She hadn't been with Su Junmo for 2 days, so she didn't know about this. Tomorrow morning, Su Junmo said. In addition to me and Chu Qin, Xue Chengxian from the Xue family will also join. In addition, the junior brother of the Fallen Star Pavilion's first sword master under Pavilion Master Pei will also join us. The Xue family will also come forward to contact the 10 major sword and spell cultivation sects in the Western Realm. It's estimated that a team of about 20 people will enter the Fallen Star Sea in the end. As he spoke, he spread out a piece of white paper and quickly drew a map of the Fallen Star Sea that they knew. Meng-Chi, if the place you're at is safe, stay there and don't move. We'll find you and bring you out. But, don't worry, Su Junmo said. I still have a group of elite subordinates that can be mobilized. They'll come to our rescue. Yuwenba. Net but, Meng-Chi. The black-clothed youth, Chu Tianfeng, sat down beside Meng-Chi and anxiously interrupted her. Don't say buts and buts. Don't worry. You just have to stay where you are. We'll find you and bring you out. Meng-Chi. Meng-Chi. Qin Xiaoma, who didn't talk much these few times, slightly raised his chin at her. Don't run around, and don't randomly pick up people. The Fallen Star Sea is extremely dangerous. You're a Jindan stage cultivator. You should save your own life first. Yes. Chu Tianfeng raised his head and looked at Qin Xiaoma. Both of them saw a touch of worry in each other's eyes. He turned his head and warned Meng-Chi with a rare serious face. Qin Xiaoma is right. That's the Fallen Star Sea. You have to live well. Your own life is more important than anything else. But Meng-Chi. Xue Jinwen smiled slightly. Don't worry. This time, the Xue family will provide a large number of pills. In addition to my eldest brother, there will also be 2 elders at the great perfection of the 6th grade medical skill participating. She walked to Meng-Chi's side and bent down to press her shoulder. My cultivation and medical skills are far inferior to my eldest brother's. I can't go with them to pick you up, but I believe that my eldest brother will risk his life to take you out of the Fallen Star Sea. Meng-Chi was stunned. Right. Xue Jinwen smiled and said, my eldest brother said that his blood moon is with you. This blood moon is a protective magic weapon of the Shui family. He has worn it since he was a child, and it has already cultivated a trace of spiritual sense, so it can communicate with its owner's mind. She said, Meng-Chi, wear it on your body and send a small amount of spiritual aura into it. My eldest brother will find you. Fellow Taoist Shui, you don't need to, okay? Su Junmo waved his hand. Meng-Chi, remember 2 things now. First, wear the blood moon on your body at all times. Second, protect yourself. Don't run around. Just stay in the safe place you are now. Meng-Chi. She was helpless. Since they entered the door, she had been interrupted constantly. Until now, she hadn't been able to say a complete sentence. Su Junmo. Meng-Chi took a deep breath and said, I have something to say. Go ahead. Su Junmo raised his chin at her. Hurry up. We still have to make some preparations. Meng-Chi pursed her lips. Su Junmo, I don't plan to leave the Fallen Star Sea now. Don't come. Su Junmo was stunned. He turned his head and hurriedly looked at Shui Jinwen and Qin Xiaoma. Meng-Chi continued. The Fallen Star Sea is actually not as dangerous as we thought. I'm fine now. I'm safe. There are also some heavenly materials and earthly treasures that are very useful to me. I don't plan to leave for the time being. Su Junmo. He turned his head to look at Chu Tianfeng and the others. Then he turned to Meng-Chi and said, Meng-Chi, you don't have to worry about us. We won't act recklessly. Naturally, we will be fully prepared before entering the Fallen Star Sea. I'm really fine. I'm safe. Meng-Chi regretted it very much. Yesterday, it was also because she said that she wanted to leave the Fallen Star Sea that these friends made such a decision. Meng-Chi stood up and bowed to everyone. Yesterday, I didn't know the situation in the Fallen Star Sea, so I was in a hurry to leave. Now the place I'm at is really safe. You don't have to worry about me. You don't have to risk entering the Fallen Star Sea for me. When I find what I need, I will naturally leave. Su Junmo looked deeply at Meng-Chi and didn't say anything. Shui Jinwen sighed softly and lowered her eyes slightly. It seemed that she couldn't bear to see the anxious look on Meng-Chi's face. Chu Tianfeng and Qin Xiaoma looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Meng-Chi, Su Junmo said in a deep voice. I know you're worried that it will be too risky for us to enter the Fallen Star Sea, but please rest assured that we will all be fine. No. Meng-Chi also felt helpless. She couldn't say anything about Yin Qingyan. It would make her explanation seem so weak. I'm really fine now. I'm very safe. Meng-Chi took a deep breath and calmed herself down. The Fallen Star Sea is really not as dangerous as the rumors say. Isn't it the best proof that I can still live until now? Meng-Chi. Qin Xiaoma suddenly said. What are you looking for in there? Meng-Chi remembered Ji Wujiang's words. She couldn't say anything about the 5-spirit cauldron. She didn't suspect that these people in the room would betray her, but for such a thing, the fewer people who knew the better. Not letting them know was actually protecting them. If she couldn't say what she needed to refine the 5-spirit cauldron, then the 5-spirit flower and the nightless fruit, Meng-Chi said. These were the things needed to refine the starlight, and they were also unique to the Fallen Star Sea. She could say these 2 things. The 5-spirit flower? The nightless fruit? Chu Tianfeng muttered and repeated in confusion. The 5-spirit flower. Shui Jinwen quickly recalled in her mind. The nightless fruit? The nightless fruit. Su Junmo suddenly widened his eyes. Meng-Chi, you want to refine the starlight? Starlight. Shui Jinwen was from the Shui family of the Wind Alliance, so she instantly reacted. You want to? She blinked in disbelief. You want to refine the starlight? Yes. You want to save Ji Wujiang. That day Meng-Chi and Ji Wujiang were both sent into the barrier of the competition, but Lu Qingran stayed in Fallen Star City. The Wind Alliance quickly found her. They did not make things difficult for Lu Qingran, and only asked about Ji Wujiang's situation from her. The Wind Alliance was the top medical cultivation sect in the Trichiliocosm. Meng-Chi could guess that Ji Wujiang's spiritual ocean was injured from his fluctuating strength and his inability to control the spirit energy leaking out. The family masters of the 4 major families of the Wind Alliance also quickly guessed Ji Wujiang's situation from Lu Qingran's description. Xueqing also asserted that Ji Wujiang's spiritual ocean should have a crack. To repair the spiritual ocean, only starlight could be used. In addition, the legendary 5-spirit origin energy could also do it. Starlight was something that only existed in the demon realm, and was produced in very small quantities. Stardust alone was extremely rare, not to mention the 5-spirit flower and the nightless fruit, which could only be found in the fallen star sea. The 5-spirit origin energy only existed in legends. Even the elders of the Wind Alliance had never seen it before. That was why Ji Wujiang had escaped the boundary of the competition, and then escaped the apricot forest with his ingenious and powerful formation. The Wind Alliance was not in a hurry. After all, a Xiuzha whose spiritual ocean was injured and could not be healed in a short period of time was not much of a threat to them. Xue Jinwen also knew about this matter, so when Meng Qi said that he wanted to find these 2 spirit herbs, she immediately guessed it. Meng Qi. Chu Tianfeng's brow furrowed tightly. That Ji Wujiang's actions are evil and extreme. Everything he does is strange. He doesn't seem like a gentleman. Don't get too close to him. Meng Qi. She really hadn't thought that they would associate him with Ji Wujiang. Even she had not thought of him for the time being. Speaking of which, she did not know how Ji Wujiang was now. She had fallen into the fallen star sea. But what about Ji Wujiang who had been with her in the Sea of Stars that day? Was he all right? Meng Qi. Su Junmo stood up. All right, you don't have to say anything else. His expression was solemn. Everyone has already decided on this matter. You don't have to lie to us and say that you are fine just because you are worried about us. We will definitely bring you out of the fallen star sea. When Su Junmo said this, everyone looked at Meng Qi and nodded at her. Meng Qi, Si Kongxing said. Meng Qi, we are friends. If it were me in the fallen star sea, would you not care about me and not come to find me? Meng Qi. Of course she would not care about Si Kongxing. But the situation was different now. That's it. Si Kongxing's eyes were shining. You will come, so we will also go. Meng Qi smiled bitterly. The fallen star sea was a dangerous place. If she said that she was fine, these people would not believe her at all. Unless she brought up Yin Qingyan. But would they believe her? Then let me talk about the second thing. Meng Qi was helpless. Sister Xue, the blood moon that your brother gave me is gone. She had fed it to the goshawk that Yin Qingyan summoned during the competition. Xue Jinwen smiled sweetly and shook her head gently. Meng Qi, even if we have to find a needle in a haystack, we will find a way to find you. The blood moon is gone. This will not change our minds. But my brother knows. She did not continue and just shook her head again. Forget it. Let's not talk about him for now. Meng Qi. But without the blood moon, it will be very difficult for you to find me. The fallen star sea is so dangerous. You. Everyone in the box had a smile on their faces. Even Qin Xioma, who had always been as cold as an iceberg, raised his eyebrows and looked at Meng Qi. Okay. Su Junmo waved his hand again. We should go. Meng Qi, protect yourself and wait for us. Meng Qi. Si Kongxing spread her arms and hugged Meng Qi tightly. Wait for us. Meng Qi. Xue Jingwen reached out and tidied her hair. You must stay alive. As long as there is a chance, even if you have to protect your last breath, don't give up your spiritual sense. Meng Qi. Qin Xioma finally said. Your life is more important than others. So don't pick up others. Only Chu Tianfeng did not say anything. The young man in black looked determined. He took a deep look at Meng Qi, turned around, and left the private room with the others. Meng Qi was stunned as she watched the door of the private room open and close. She felt that her reputation was not bad. She never lied and had always been honest with others. Why did these people? Meng Qi's nose suddenly twitched, and her eyes became hot. She actually knew why. Because these people really treated her as a friend. Therefore, none of these people were above the spirit-severing stage, but they all dared to enter the fallen star sea, where all those below the spirit-severing stage who enter will die. She couldn't. She couldn't really watch them die. Meng Qi suddenly jumped up and rushed out of the private room. She was going to ask Yin Qingyan. Because if she couldn't mention him, then she couldn't make them believe her. But without Yin Qingyan's permission, She couldn't tell others about him. Sister Shui, Su Junmo and the others hadn't gone far. Meng Qi chased after them and called out, "Wait for me for another hour." "No. Half an hour." She said to them, "I'll be back soon." After Meng Qi finished speaking, she ran out of the heavens beyond building. Su Junmo and the rest looked at her back view as she ran away, stunned. "Then now we..." She was a little hesitant. "Wait for Meng Qi." Si Kongxing was the most decisive. "I believe that she won't lie to us." "Okay." Su Junmo nodded. "We'll wait for her for half an hour. If she doesn't come back, we'll act according to the plan." Qing Yan's Henjun. Meng Qi immediately opened her eyes as soon as she stepped into the teleportation array to leave. She was originally in Yin Qingyan's room. She stood up and looked at the place where Yin Qingyan had been sitting cross-legged to cultivate. On the carved bed, the white-robed young man who had been sitting there just now was still sitting there. Hearing Meng Qi's voice, he suddenly opened his eyes. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."